Welcome to Full Throttle Talk, the podcast where horsepower meets conversation. From supercars to classic legends, high revving tech to motorsport mayhem, we cover it all. Straight from the driver's seat, whether you're a gearhead or racer or just love the thrill of the open road, you're in the right place. Buckle up, hit the gas, and let's go full throttle into today's episode. Welcome back. It's Full Throttle Talk, your favorite weekly podcast. And of course, I'm here with Casey, David, and Paul. And we've got a really great show for you this week. We're going to be talking about automotive news that caught our attention. We're going to be discussing Alpina BMWs, which hopefully Casey's ready to present because that's what it says in my notes about that. We're going to talk about building the ultimate two-car garage with Alpina BMWs. So we're trying to keep things interesting for all of you. And we have a lot of listener questions and comments that we're going to be getting to, and obviously a lot of other comments and questions and thoughts and things like that we're going to share with you as well throughout the podcast today. I want to first start out by thanking all of you who have joined the Full Throttle Talk newsletter, joined our community. If you've not yet done so, we are cranking out the content. A lot of really great feedback on some of the articles that we've been writing. With regards, like I had some comments today about the article that just got published on the best private racetracks in the United States. And Casey wrote one on winterizing your cars, things like that. So a lot of diversity, but if you've not yet subscribed to the newsletter, please do so. Just go to fullthrottletalk.com or click the link below. Gentlemen, let's start. Welcome to today's podcast.
Excellent.
Hello.
Welcome.
And
Morning,
David,
guys.
Good morning.
I hope that picture is not from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Well, it feels like it is right now. Let me tell you, it is. It's freezing here. It's
I like how it says
freaking cold.
tag a bar.
Yeah. Well, that's AI for you right there. The Targa is right there, right there. You can
Did
see
you
it.
really make that? Did you really make that with AI?
I did, yeah. I have a
Oh,
bunch of these. We do this. We do this event, and once a month. It's called Targa Bar, right? So we host it. Normally, it's outside. So I normally post a little something up ahead of the event so that people know we're still doing it, remind them, whatever. And it's freezing cold, so we're gonna have to move it in, but it's tomorrow night. So this was my post for last night on Instagram. So there you go. So we'll move off that though.
yeah, we will. Well, it's a good visual.
Santa's cold.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so what did you guys do in cars this week? Paul, you first.
The biggest thing was, and this is one of my favorite cars, is I got to finally drive my GT3. It was the first I think the second car after surgery I tried to drive as a manual, and I got around the block and I was just in pain. I was like, there's no way. Because if you've driven, and Tim, you owned one of these cars, the manual is like a 930 manual. It has got to be the heaviest modern clutch to operate. And the only way I could operate it, I think that I first tried driving it 6 weeks ago, was just pushing my left leg in with my left arm to operate the clutch. And I took it out this weekend, drove it to a little Cars and Coffee that they have on Sunday morning in Lido. And then the funny thing was, I don't have a picture of it, but we're driving down PCH, if you're familiar, Tim, from Lido to Crystal Cove, and just to kind of continue, because Lido kicks us out by 8 o'clock, 8:30. And there is this young, attractive Asian gal driving a Lamborghini matte black something that was the worst burble tune I have ever heard.
Let me introduce. So, am I supposed to relate to the young, attractive Asian gal, the Lamborghini, or the drive from Lido to Crystal Cove, or all the above?
I guess everything, but yeah, all of it. Yeah,
All of it. Okay, good.
Yeah,
Because
that tracks.
I was vibing.
So, and we're cruising through Corona del Mar, which is a quaint little town, which is a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, and there's probably 20 exotics, Porsches. The Stuttgart Lambros car, the GT3 RS. There was probably 4 or 5 of those. Sorry, Dave.
Sorry,
And
Dave, indeed.
my car was put it this way, was the second oldest car there. There was a 930. And I'm like, and then in front of our whole train is a highway patrol, Newport Beach Police. And I'm like, how is this going to go down? It looks like everyone set their cruise control for 35. I mean, we could not go, we look like a parade. He pulls into a left turn pocket, and I'm like, okay, maybe he's getting coffee. I'm watching my mirror. Yep, it's exactly Tim. He comes out behind all of us. And I've got a dealer plate on, and I do look old in the car. I take my hat off, so I look even older, like I don't belong with these people. He pulls right behind the Lamborghini, and I'm like, oh, they have to do, I don't even know how you drive that car without making it burble tune. And the minute they lifted off the gas, and it just, and I think it even loaded it up because it just went bam. He lit him up, pulled him over. Never found out what happened with it, but it was really cool to do that. And just really quickly, they had it finish line, which is that high end car storage. It was Porsche Day, which whenever they do Porsche Day, I mean, there was, I don't know, 300 Porsches.
Wow.
The
Place
green
looks
ones,
phenomenal.
It's
yeah.
What was it
exactly.
built ground up or what was that adapted from?
Yeah, good question.
There was a, I think it was some kind of storage building, maybe public storage, but they totally
Really?
gutted it. And I mean, here's an example. This is my friend Kip's place, which here's the irony is most of these places, these owners have other storage. This is this is just a plain white box with a mezzanine. He forklifted up this Model T, and this is a replica of the Mercedes first vehicle. And then that is all
Holy
real
shit.
brick that
Holy
curves.
shit.
And if you could, I don't know if you could see the ceiling, but the
Oh, that's
ceiling's a
gorgeous.
barrel shape, which it's not originally. And then if you look in the upper corners, like right over there, he's built skylights into it that change based on daylight, but there's actually no window there. It
So it's
just
basically a screen up there that looks like the sky.
it's a I think it's a glass thing with a light behind it that
Got it.
changes shade. Um, and you know, like I said, he's got a collection, another warehouse full of cars, but I mean, just
Mm.
spectacular
Oh yeah.
examples. But anyway, that's what I did. There's, as you know, in Southern California, if you ever guys want to see what we have a choice of, if you go to Instagram, my friend Leo has, I think it's CNC underscore events. And thank God he did this because now he basically lists every event happening Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Southern California. And I just send people out of town. Here's his Instagram. There's probably already listed for this weekend 30 events, you know, cars and coffee, toy drives, things like that. So we are certainly spoiled, but
Yeah.
not a bad weekend.
Dave, how about you? What'd you do in cars this week?
Well, spent a little time handing out full throttle talk stickers over the weekend here, as evidenced by my image behind me here. But a couple of different Porsche events, always like Paul mentioning Toys for Tots sort of thing. So there was two events same day, two different Porsche dealers. So this was at Hendrick. Very cool little Outlaw 356 that they pulled inside. We've done a little bit of work on that car, but there was some really neat, other pieces there, obviously on the dealer floor. VT4 RS that I just took a picture of because it sort of mirrors. It's the 4RS version of my car with the kind of uh, the color combination and so on. YSOC package. I thought that was kind of cool. And then they had a new turbo or a 50th anniversary turbo there too, which I love the interior on. I didn't grab a picture of that interior, but I think that's a great car. Then there was another event that was at the other Porsche dealer that I did as well. Took the GT4, excuse me, GT3 RS to both of them. A lot of fun. Now I'm up to over 400 miles on that car. Woo-hoo. So but it's been cold. It's really been hard to go out and cold and rainy and kind of miserable. So haven't really had a chance to drive it much, but hopefully this weekend we'll get it out and find some cool roads to take it out on.
I'm sure
That was
everyone
me.
listen, everyone wants to know, what do you think so far? Granted, 400 miles going into the winter, so not the greatest time to test it, but
It's
what's your
so
feeling?
different. It's so different. I mean, that's really I can describe it. I mean, it's like the absolute extreme end of these cars. Um, I'm not and this is certainly super nitpicky stuff, but I'm not a super fan of the Pirelli tires that are on the car. I say that is because I find them to be noisier than other tires. I mean, I had my 991. I switched out to Michelin's and it made a giant difference on the noise on the tires. And so and especially when it gets cold and you're turning the wheel to back the car up, it makes it sound like it's dragging the whole front end of the car when you're backing it up on cold pavement. So just one of those,
That,
nitpicky things, but the car's phenomenal. I mean, no question.
You
so
didn't
for what
get
it's
it.
worth, Dave, sorry, they
No,
they
no.
call that tire scrubbing, Dave. We would get calls like that all the time at the dealership. So basically, when you change the angle in the front end of a Porsche, the tires do this, and you're not
Yep.
getting that contact patch on the ground, and that's what that comes from. The only way to fix that is winter tires, which you're not going to do. Changing a compound to another summer tire, like another 200 treadwear, won't alleviate that issue. It's just the time of year with the temperatures of the ground and then a cold tire.
So
I
say that
found
again, Casey.
honestly though, Casey, the minute I swapped out those Pirellis to the pilots, it improved it dramatically. So I'm
But
not,
Good.
it might be compound, might be contact patch or
Sure.
something,
Casey, what
but
do you mean by what you said? It changes the
It
camber when
changes
you go
when you,
backwards.
sorry, when you change angle of the steering, the camber changes.
Right.
So like let's say you're turning left, the camber will do this. So
I
when
get
the
it.
car is under G-force, the tires will pull themselves flat. So the camber change. I mean, it's always, when you're driving straight, sorry, it's like this. But when you change angle, your tires do this, and it's
Right.
basically so that you're able to get grip under high G turns.
And
The
Dave,
easiest way to see it is to see a race car at full tilt going around a corner. You can see how the tires lay on the ground.
Dave, you didn't have a choice between the Pirellis and the Michelins. They just put on it what they're going to put on it, right?
yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
and so you could have very well three cars as the was on the assembly line. That guy got Michelin's and you got Pirellis. That's the way it works in Porsche land.
I don't know. I think they all come Pirelli. I'm pretty sure.
It might
It,
also be market driven. I mean, Casey
That's
probably knows
possible too,
better.
right?
it's
Location is
well,
US
no,
or wherever.
it just depends on what's coming down the line.
There you go.
The only tire you could have selected on a Porsche would have been for a 918, if I'm not mistaken. But it's whatever rolls down the line. They have N-rated tires. The shop that I work with a lot, the race shop, really enjoys the Goodyear option that was available for that car.
Hmm.
Um, of the three that I look after, I don't even know what they are. Um, I can check and report back, but I think I know at least two of them are Goodyear. I think one of them's Pirelli.
Well, it'll be interesting, Dave, because with the my GT3, I don't know what it would have come with back then, and just tire technology's changed so much. When I bought the car, it had Michelin Pilot Cup Sport 2s, which
Hmm.
are this close to being an R compound. Honestly, for street driving, which is all I plan on doing, they were wretched. I mean, they took forever to heat up. They didn't do well with going up to the mountains and mass change in temperature. They were good for a track tire. I put the Pilot Sport 4S's on, and hopefully they'll have 5S's by the time I put the next set on. Magic tires. I mean, they do
Mm.
everything well. And I'd be
Hmm.
curious on an RS, which I'm sure is coming with an aggressive. Do they come with under 200 treadwear or just at 200?
I haven't looked at the
I
tire,
think
but
they're
that wouldn't surprise
200.
me, obviously.
It'd be curious to see if they make a 4S, 5S tire for that car. So when they wear out, I just think for how we are driving, I assume you're not anxious
What
to go to the track,
the
you know?
amount of mileage I'm going to have on it, the tires will age out before they'll wear out, I guarantee,
Yes.
probably, right?
And the Pirellis especially. Pirellis, they just they do not like sitting
Well,
compared to the Michelins.
Dave, what would you sell that for right now? Like, what would it take for someone to like think, think, think?
Oh,
Money,
man.
no, money aside. Money
What's it
aside.
going to take?
If
What would it
money's
take?
aside, then I'm not selling it. But
Well, what
it'd
would
be have
tempt?
to be north of four somewhere. It'd be
No, no,
north of
no, not
four.
money, dude. Let's not talk money. What would it take a car wise in a similar price range? Like, don't worry about making money.
Like
I know
someone comes along and says, I'm going to take that and I'm going to give you this, and this
this.
is
Yeah.
whatever you want it to be.
No money
What would
changing hands. Right.
I would
Thank you,
get a
Paul.
paint, and because I've talked about this, because it was funny. I was at the dealer, and literally they know I've had it for 3 months or whatever, and the guy's already asking me, "So what do you want to do next?" Um, so
Car dealers.
I would probably drop down to a GT3 manual car in a paint to sample color that I really liked. That's what I would do. I
Interesting.
If
think the
it if it
RS
were
is
me, I would do.
more than certainly more than I'm ever going to need or use. So I'd probably take a GT3 because I think it's a better overall, just if I'm going to drive it around car. But
So
I
like
would
on
do
a,
the highest mileage 911R.
oh yeah, that's a good idea.
I was told money was no object, though, Paul. So I'm only following the
Yeah,
rules
but
here.
your car, what is your car worth right now? High threes?
Probably,
Probably.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I don't
So I
know.
just did some diligence on tires. There are five N-rated tires for that car. Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s, which are 240 tread rating. Pirelli P0 Corsas, which are an 80 tread rating.
What?
Jeez.
Super Sport R Goodyears, which are an 80 tread rating. Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2Rs, which are a 140 tread rating, and Pirelli P0 Trofeo RS tires, which are 100 tread rating. So my guess is
This
that,
one has the courses on it.
okay, so that is, let me go
An
back to
80? I
that.
think it's an
That's
80.
an 80 treadwear. So
Yeah.
that is a big part of the reason that you're having that issue. I do
So the
not.
highest treadwear is the Michelin at 140?
Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s are 240.
Oh,
Wow.
But that's
240.
still gonna be a loud tire, Dave. But yeah, like
Yeah.
Paul said, I'm a huge Pilot Sport 4S fan. If you can get those that fit, put the other ones in a shed, preferably a
That's a
climate
super,
controlled
that
shed,
is
and
a
then enjoy
super
it.
a nitpicky thing to say as well, because I mean the car is phenomenal. I mean, if I'm
Well,
gonna,
I,
what do you
I
expect when you've got that much rubber underneath you? It's gonna make some noise, but I just know certain tires are just more noisy than others. So
so I had a new Touring. I had a 992 Touring, right? And I have to tell you that the tires, which I don't remember, they were definitely, they weren't the Michelins, but the tires basically were 30% of the reason that I sold that car. It was so effing loud on the inside. It was insane. It ruined the experience for me. And the
Like,
991 we had did not do that and probably had better
mhm.
tires.
I think
But so
Spike didn't Spike talk about that, and finally Jerry had to buy him tires because they would stop complaining about it.
it's so freaking loud. There's no insulation back there. There's no, ugh. Anyway, I don't want to bitch about something
So
like
so
that.
if
These
Porsche
are really terrible
if
problems you
Porsche
got
I
there.
spec
know.
tires are N rated, are like Lamborghini spec tires X rated? Like who's got the X rating on that? I always wondered why they call it N. Why wouldn't they just have it as P for Porsche?
They've evolved it, but N stands for norm in German, which means version.
Any other dumb questions, Paul?
I will have a few more. I'm writing them down just so I don't forget them.
Yeah.
Casey, you're next. What did you do in cars this week?
Weather has gone to crap in the mid-Atlantic. They have salted the roads. I did get some time in the Land Cruiser the other week, which was tremendous. Basically, I'm selling a GT3 for a client, and I had to bring his factory wheels and factory exhaust to put it back to original. So that was enjoyable. It's been a while since I put good miles on that car, but it was nice. A lot of the other stuff that I've been doing is just prepping cars for Bring a Trailer. There's the one that we
Oh,
talked about
yes.
for the Carrera S, and you can see the beautiful 996s behind it.
You've got
And
six
then
coming up, right? In January.
I
I've
I
heard.
do. I have a
Wait,
whole lot coming
wait,
up.
go back, Casey, really quick. That picture.
Yep.
Are those three 996 Cup cars?
The one on the right, with the stripe down the middle of it, that is my buddy Mike's car that he and Randy Popes won the 2006 24 Hours Daytona in. The middle
Whoa.
one is a 2004 GT3 RS. That's the one that I take care of. And the other one is a GT3 FIA competition car that I helped my client get from England. That's the last version of the Porsche 911 of that level to feature an H-box manual transmission. Following that, the 2004 went to the RSR platform, and that was the first introduction of sequential in those cars. So the 2003, they made 20 of.
So that one in the middle, is that a street
Yeah,
GT3 RS?
yeah, that's the one that you guys have seen me drive around before.
Okay, but I thought so. Is it got like blue graphics or red? They only came two
It's
ways,
red.
right? Okay.
It's got red graphics on it, but that's a cool car. So anyway, lots of Bring a Trailer preparation. Here's a really nice, super original 89 944 turbo. But the other thing that I wanted to bring up, and it's a little bit of something that I like to do is supporting. When I worked at the dealership, we would do these events where we would sell stickers to support this group called Pets with Disabilities, which is basically cats and dogs that, are have a whole bunch of issues and traditionally can't be taken care of. So they go to this place, which is they either place them with foster people that are able to take care of them, or they have a sanctuary for them there. And I really miss doing that at the dealership. So if you go to my website, I worked with a local artist here in Baltimore named Ben Clausen. That's really cool. And he helped me design this t-shirt idea, which is my dog Ellie and Jet, which is a no front legged lab that runs around like a T-Rex, which is pretty awesome. And if you go to my website, Group C Curation, you'll see that there is a tab that says charity shirt. Basically, I've had the shirts made already, but it's just a prototype. I'm going to refine it a little bit, and then I'm going to sell them and raise money for the animal for that animal charity. And it's super important to me. So if you guys would support it, or at least sign up for
Are you do
information,
stickers?
we're gonna. So basically, my goal is this. It's going to be $50, and it's going to be a T-shirt and a sticker, and it's going to be shipped anywhere in the continental United States. And every cent of profit, which should be about $21 or $22, will go directly to the animal rescue. Zero of it goes to me.
How much are you planning on? How much do you hope to raise?
Um, my goal would be to sell 100 shirts.
So 200
So
bucks,
$2,000.
And
2,000 bucks.
I have an idea, just knowing what my audience is to help raise money. If you come up with stickers that aren't too big, like a normal size sticker.
So it's funny you say that. It's going to be the thing behind me, but I've been trying out sizes. That's 3.5. That's 3 inches. So I'm going to cut them out and put them on the side of my car to make sure that they look okay.
But I was saying if it's something as simple as a sticker, which is super easy to mail, I'd be open to doing a promotion on our website, maybe send an email out, and then just I think a lot of my clients don't care about t-shirts, but if you just say something like, hey, $20, you get 3 or 4 stickers,
Sure.
and which are
It's a great idea, Paul. Thank you.
25-cent paste. Yeah. And then I think those will do well for sure.
Yeah.
I'll donate.
No,
I'll donate $500. You don't have to send me anything.
I appreciate that, Tim.
So
Thank you.
send me a money request and whatever, and we'll wire it today.
You
Cool.
got it. Awesome. Yeah,
Yep.
no, I appreciate that. And one last thing. The 964 has not moved much because the weather is absolute shit, but it starts and it runs perfectly. No issues there. And I just spent $2,500 with our friends at Elephant Racing for front and rear control arm and spring plate bushings. So there you go.
Nice.
Cool.
Nice. Awesome.
What do we do? This, I don't know if you guys remember, but I say Giulia, but it's really ours. That's our Alfa Romeo Quadrifoglio. And if you guys have never driven one of those things before, which I'm pretty much guarantee you that none of you have, it is really an exceptionally fun car. Do you guys know about those cars? Do you know?
Yeah,
anything about it?
I've driven one.
So have I.
I would love.
Oh, I was wrong. Wow.
No, I've driven one, and if they made an estate wagon touring, whatever you want to call it, out of that, which they won't, I'd be tempted.
It's awesome, right? I mean, the
Yeah, they're
motor
very
in that thing's
nice.
crazy. But it's basically a Ferrari. What was it? Out of the California that became the Portofino, that became the Roma. It's basically that same V8 with 2 fewer cylinders, and everything about it's a lot of fun. It definitely has an Italian car vibe. Well, obviously it does, but it's so different than any of the German cars that we have, or any of the modern stuff, especially the German cars. It's definitely worth, and the prices of those cars is shockingly cheap. In the US, that car new was 85 grand, and I don't even know what it's worth now. I don't follow it, but
25.
so the one downside is that because Julie's a bit of an aggressive driver, as am I, we do go through tires. So it's got 6,000 miles on it. We need to put tires on it. So we're going to, frankly, I already ordered them. They should arrive today from the rack. Michelin Pilot Sport 4Ss. So those are on the way. That is the only thing. Well, and then we went out and explored some. I actually had some local Puerto Rican folks say a few things about comments in our previous shows about lack of Puerto Rican driving roads. And I actually had my neighbor pull me aside and, tell me I didn't know what I was talking about as far as what the driving roads were. So I went online and researched, and Julie and I went on a drive. So on hill, I did listen to you. Okay. So for the record. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk automotive news, and I'll go last because I probably have too much to share with you guys. And so Paul, why don't you go first? Automotive news.
All right, let me switch to this picture, which is really funny because if I take my hat off, it looks like I have long hair.
That's awesome.
Leave
I
it
didn't
off.
realize that till this morning, but if you want to see me with long flowing hair, but no, far more attractive. That's Amelia Hartford. If you know her from YouTube, you may call her an influencer, automotive
She's
journalist.
awesome.
Very, very cool. Very, very cool woman. Does a lot. But anyway, Both her and Tanner Faust have gotten together with, forgot the gentleman's name, Michael George, and they've started another channel called Driven, which, one, do we need another channel? Two, Driven, Drive Time, Drive Tribe, The Drive. I mean, it gets a little bit confusing, but I do like the ethos of it, which is basically content creators can own their own content. What Amelia said, which was probably the most succinct, and I'll just quote her: Driven will give creators and talent more autonomy and will do so in a way that allows them to give their fans exactly the kind of content they want instead of serving an algorithm. And what I imagine that to be is this channel. Do you remember when Speed TV came out, Speed Vision? Like for us car people, that was like the first TV channel that was just all the stuff we wanted to see. I mean, before that, you would catch ABC Wide World of Sports with a half-hour segment on like F1 recap. And there they had everything from World Challenge Series to F1, whatever. And I think now it's gotten further away from that. It's hard to capture that. So hopefully that happens. Now, this is not public news, so it could be rumor. I have heard rumor, nothing I can find publicly, that possibly Tanner Faust has some health issues that are serious. I don't know anything more about it, but I do hope this launches. I do know Richard Hammond's trying to relaunch. Do you remember Drive Tribe that came out like 16 and 17 with the Top Gear guys? And it kind of failed because no one knew what the hell it was. I know Richard Hammond's trying to relaunch that, which their idea is basically people in the automotive industry, whether they're drivers, mechanics, builders, engineers, designers, they have a channel where they basically communicate with each other, and us as a nobody, get to sit at home and watch from the sideline.
Paul, do you know, you keep saying channel, but so channel would be implied that it was YouTube, which would not be in alignment with what you just said Amelia was talking about. So are you saying this is a standalone website? Because if it's
Yes.
a channel on YouTube, you're basically YouTube.
No, it won't be on YouTube. It won't be
Okay.
on YouTube. It's going to be some other platform, a website, somewhere you go to that's not hosted by someone else. So the content creators, I look at it almost as an automotive content creator co-op where everyone owns their own content and you're not getting served based on an algorithm, where I have a hard time finding stuff that I know what I want to watch. Like even when we're talking about Alpina, I knew that there was a great interview with Andreas, the founder, and it took me forever to find it because YouTube just kept on serving everything else up. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, they just changed their algorithms too. I mean, obviously they do it all the time, but there was a big one in our other space, in the real estate space, which we found out about after, because they don't send out a notice saying, guess what, the rules have changed. And so it's constantly having to play whack-a-mole. So good for her. But can I tell Amelia's story, which I think is kind of funny?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Let me get my hair on.
the thing that's really awesome about her is that she's a really great presenter, but also a great driver. And it's not, and I don't even want to remember her sex when I'm saying that. She's just great, period, regardless of her sex, and that's something that's really cool about her, because normally when someone's trying to say, they always say it's a female presenter and somehow we're supposed to give her a little bit, okay, well, that's the reason the content's not as good. Her content is freaking better, frankly, than half the shit I see out there from anybody else. But I'll tell you what really made me love her is that she was driving, guess what, Paul? Corvette ZR1 at Coda.
Wait a minute. Let me just roll my eyes.
Okay,
All right,
okay, we
continue.
got it. Okay, go back. All right, so she was driving the Corvette ZR1 at Coda, and she was really excited to get in it, so pumped up. Did you guys see this video? Do you remember what I'm talking about? And so she
No.
went out and drove this thing, and she's freaking fast. It's a lead and follow deal, and she's catching up. Girl's got some real seat time, real skills, obviously. And she comes back in, she just doesn't look right. And she said something which made me forever respect her. She said, I get sick when I drive. I get nauseous when I drive really, really fast, which I know a lot of men do, but a man would never admit that he gets sick when he drives, So I just thought that was kind of funny that she's that, comfortable with herself as a presenter. So anyway,
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll be very successful. And obviously thoughts and prayers to Tanner with whatever he's dealing with. Hopefully nothing at all. And it's just a silly rumor.
Yep.
Good. Casey, you're up next.
I threw up at the Porsche Experience Center in Atlanta.
Was it a Taycan?
No, it was a GT3 RS.
Ah.
You should have said it was a Macan. a Macan
The
D6.
funny thing is I got sick at the track, and then I was in the bus on the way to the airport, and I had to make the bus pull over. So
That's
anyway,
Nice.
Well, that's
When they
horrible.
when they
that's a
launched
great story.
when they launched the Taycan at Pecla Porsche Experience Center in LA, they were doing these rides, and they would just do like 5 or 6 laps of that tiny little track. I sat in the front. And there was these, I don't know, husband and wife sat in the back seat. After lap 2, they wanted out, and lap 3, they both threw up, and that was the
Okay,
end of
so
our ride.
listen, I didn't mean to take a bend for the story with telling. Okay, so we can move away from, you know.
Let's do vomit stories. Come
I'm
on.
humble enough to say that I am a man, and I threw up.
Well, you were in the
Hi,
passenger
Casey.
seat though, Casey, right? You were riding, you
That
weren't
time
driving.
I was in the passenger seat.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, that's completely forgivable, right? Do you guys have any hacks for not getting sick when you're riding along? I've had different people tell me different things.
Eyes up.
Yeah,
Always eyes
Well,
up. No,
I wear those, like sometimes you wear those
yep.
pressure
Relief
point
bands.
relief bands. But the biggest thing is don't look at your phone. It's hard
Well,
not to.
what is it? Dramamine? You know,
That
so
makes you sleepy.
Just go to
well, no,
sleep.
it totally does. But when we lived in Georgetown, and we went to a range, of course, there was a lot of special forces guys there. And I asked them that same question because one of my guys who was a Marine and also worked, it doesn't matter all the stories, but I rode with him and he was driving and he made me a little car sick. I mentioned it to him. One of the other guys there was an ex-SEAL, said they used to basically buy Dramamine by the freaking truck full for all their missions. I thought, well,
Drink lots
okay.
of water too. Lots of
Yeah.
water.
All right, cool. So I'm sorry, Casey, were you
I
done?
tried to figure out where there was a range in Georgetown, but we must be thinking about two different
Best of the
Georgetowns.
West. Best of the West was down by Austin, and then
Ah,
Georgetown, Texas.
no, Georgetown, the part of Washington,
Oh
D.C.
no, brother, you're those blue folk. No, those nice, kind-hearted people would never let anyone with the gun within 50 miles of that place.
Yep. Anyway, so automotive news, the new Gymkhana video came out yesterday. It is absolutely tremendous. I'm a huge Travis Pastrana fan. He's a Maryland guy. Absolutely check it out. There's a part where he drives into the Bathurst 1000 on Mount Panorama, which I think is one of the coolest racetracks in the entire world. So I definitely recommend checking that out. And then the other thing I had to report is that the Hagerty bull market list came out, and while I didn't agree with a lot of them on there, I did agree, and it's unfortunate that they've added the Mark III GTI VR6 to that list,
Yeah.
which is awesome. So I'd recommend checking that out as well. They've got the video out and everything, but always good to see some Mark III love because they've been very unloved for a very long time.
The
Casey, what
hardest
did
part
you
is find a Mark III that's not
beat the
destroyed.
hell? Right?
Rusted,
Casey,
yeah.
what did you think of the other cars that they were suggesting in that? And if you all haven't watched that Haggerty video, you got to watch it. There was two new Haggerty videos, right? The one that you're talking about, I think I watched two last night in prep for the show today. But
Yeah,
anyway,
I
ahead.
just really read about the Mark III. I did see that Art's old Art from Driving While Awesome, his old
That was his.
Skyline
That
was
was his.
actually used in the thing, and he sold it for not nearly enough. And then they announced a year later that it's on the bull market list, and they used his car. I love R33 Skylines. That would probably be the pick if I were to ever get one, which will never happen.
Except
But
in the
I think
video, it lost to the a C6 Corvette
Yeah.
Z06. Sorry,
No,
Paul.
no surprise. No surprise. But
I've not watched the video yet, but I'll have to check that one out. Yesterday was a busy day.
Did you guys
mean, I
watch
could-
it, Dave or Paul, by chance?
I did. I
watched
did.
Oh, go ahead.
I watched it, and then I also wrote for our newsletter, which I don't know if it's come out yet, kind of a quick recap of the bull market, and also another newsletter on how they did on last year's. Which
What'd you
know,
think? I'm serious because I thought the video was awesome, and I watched everyone with the exception of that Dodge Charger, which I don't know anything about those. I cannot find any flaws in their logic.
I can't. I actually think the two, the Carrera GT a little bit. I feel
Getting
like that was like.
expensive.
I think it was clickbait. I kind of feel like the shark. Here's the two things I feel about that. The Carrera GT was just to have something shiny, pretty, far-reaching. I feel like it's jumped the shark a little bit, but then I go, okay, $1.5 million for a level 2+ to 1- Carrera GT. But what are 918 Spiders? Aren't they almost double?
No, a Weissach really good one's 3 million. A non-Weissach
So
is like two
Who would rather
two.
have a Carrera GT than
I
a
would have a Carrera GT over the
918?
918 all day
Yeah,
long.
that's
And I know the 918 is more drivable, but this is a car that you're looking for an experience. The only thing I had question was they had like a Lincoln Mark II, which looked badass, but I kind of feel like who's buying that? Like I know they mentioned that there's younger buyers. I'd love to see the size of their sample set. Um,
I want to see a
like
30-year-old
four.
driving that.
I just yeah, try to I mean, I can picture one on bags with Budnick 18-inch, 19-inch wheels, and the guy's hanging his arm out with full
Tattoos.
sleeves, like tats.
Yeah.
The funny thing going back to the Charger was watching Henry Catchpole driving the Charger. And it is the least dynamic. Maybe the Ram truck is second. And when he drove that, he could tell he was genuinely enjoying it. And the funny thing was, he drove it the right way. He wasn't like two wheels. He had his arm on the windowsill, as you do, one hand kind of draped over the steering wheel. And so I think he kind of understood the ethos. I think the Skyline is probably the wrong choice because that's always the redheaded stepchild of the three, the R32, R33, and then R34. I think, sadly, to Casey's point, the Mark III is going to be the biggest jump. They're just too cheap. They're really too cheap for what they are.
They're kind of ugly though.
That's
Stop.
what makes them charming. But you look at a 20th anniversary edition, they're over 20 grand. An R32 or a Golf R, those are 30,
So
40,000.
you agree with all their assessments with regards to
Except
where,
for the Lincoln. Except for the
except for the
Lincoln.
Lincoln,
I think
right?
the Lincoln's a little bit off. I think also that black Chevy SS truck. I mean, I don't want that, but I
Wasn't it
think
funny watching him, a proper British guy, freaking feign enthusiasm for American muscle cars? I'm sorry, that obviously was for the sake of getting his paycheck. God bless you, Harry, but come
what
on
so
now,
they flew him out to, where was that at? Hagerty Proving Grounds? Does Hagerty have a
Michigan. I'm guessing
okay.
it had to be.
So
Yep.
yeah, but good to watch. And like I said, it's interesting to see how they did from last year's predictions. And I want to say what were the big winners was like 18% jump was the big winner. It wasn't a huge jump. So
Where do you think, Paul, if you had, and Dave and Casey, I'm interested in what you guys think because I've actually been thinking about this for the sake of today's show. What do you think will be the home run, catches everyone by surprise, appreciating winner going at the end of next year, and of the specialty sports cars that we all like, the high nerd stuff
oh, not of this group, just in general, what we
in
think would
general,
be.
like maybe something they overlooked.
Mm, go first, Dave or
Yeah.
Casey. Do you have a thought on what? Well, tying
It
into
hasn't already
this week's show, and I
Casey's got
really
a good
thought about this hard.
answer. You
I
guys weren't
think
looking.
Alpinas. I think true
Uh-oh.
VIN Alpinas.
Oh, dude, way to tie it down. Love that shit. Yep,
But
that's where we're
seriously,
going. I agree. So, do you have a case you had your thinking look on your face?
I've talked about it before, but I still think there's headroom for both Cayman R and first gen Boxster Spider.
I have to agree with that for sure. But I mean, there's not, I'll say this, I'll propose this to you guys. I think a Countach. Okay. I think Countach is right now for 500 to 600 grand. If you compare it to the modern equivalent of the Countach, which would be what, the F40 and some, similar stuff from that same era, the Countach seems to me to be half price. Especially the late 80s ones that don't have the extra cladding on them, not the cocaine Miami ones. But those cars, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they doubled in value, or at least went up by 30 to 40%. And
the
Have they
89,
had
that's
already
the
gone up
Horatio one.
already?
Is
uh,
it before the 25th anniversary car?
that's what I'm trying to say. Exactly.
Yeah.
Before they made them ugly, right? I would be, because look, what do you got? Generation X. Demographically, if you want it, we don't need to nerd out on it, but that's right in the sweet spot of people that are now able to make money. And the economy is getting better. Housing is getting better. Exactly. Paul Kramer's influence with that on his logo. I mean, the whole thing. So do you guys, I mean, there it is. That's my opinion on that matter.
I mean, Diablos are still undervalued. Those in Hummer H2 trucks.
Well, so I've been in the Ferrari world forever, and I've been mildly in the Lamborghini world, and I can tell you that a lot of the Ferrari guys are going to the going to the Lamborghini world because the Ferrari space has gotten to be not what people are familiar with, and now the nature of the market of those with regards to the depreciation is really shot. Even very well off people, they're not willing to play the game anymore. So who knows?
Oh, Tim, I got one Ferrari thing for you. You ready?
Oh boy.
The other day, I back to back to back an F12 TDF, an A12 Competizione, and a 12 Cylindri.
Okay, the first one's the only one I'd want. How about you?
I don't know. I'm good. I donate. I would
Because I'll take a
buy.
Land Cruiser.
I would buy 1,000 Group C curation Pets with Disabilities T-shirts.
No, dude, it doesn't
Then buy
matter.
that car.
It doesn't matter. They're all the exact. The money doesn't matter. You have to choose three. You get to choose one of them. You get it for free. Taxes paid, insurance paid, no money issues. You cannot sell it. You have to buy it and you have to drive it.
12 Cylindri with a lot of the black stuff painted. But I'd wait for the next year because they still have that stupid haptic start thing in the steering wheel of the one that I drove.
Interesting. Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's how it is in our 296 too. I thought those would all have the new wheel.
Nah, it's a beautiful car though. It's really, really pretty.
Did you drive the TDF
Mhm.
just poking around, or did you actually drive it?
No. I mean, those cars are 1.6, $1.7 million now. I didn't beat on that. There's a great Ferrari shop near us called Competizione. So
Yeah.
I did a little bit of a warm up on it just to make sure that everything came up happily and then put it on the flatbed to go there for its yearly service.
All right then. Okay. So David, I think you and I had a lot of similar notes as far as automotive news we want to talk about.
Well, I'll let you take the other one of the picture you have. I just thought the interest was we'll see if anybody grabs the ring as they're going around in the merry-go-round here. But obviously, the Trump administration suggested that they would be cool with building microcars here in the United States.
You
And
lead. Go ahead. I think that's an awesome topic. Go for it.
yeah, well, I mean, I think it's interesting. I just don't know if there's a market. I mean, obviously, I pulled around and looked to see what I could pull up image-wise and what interesting cars they would be if you started to look at these things. And I think the little trucks and so on probably have more market potential here in the United States than some of these little tiny little cars. Casey, what is this I got behind me again? I can't remember. What is
It's
this
a
thing?
AutoZam AZ1.
There's one.
19.
That's what he's talking
There you
about.
go.
Those types of cars that I just put up. If you
Yeah,
guys aren't
exactly. These little I
and
mean,
this.
is the American market? I mean, they've been importing these little smart cars for a while and so on from Mercedes. Is there a market for these cars here in the United States?
What do
I
you
mean,
guys
in the
think?
city, urban centers,
Yeah.
There's
apartments where
yeah.
they can't plug in an EV, but they want, fuel economy, small space. I mean, here's the hard part is like, how do you get an American out of a bigger car into a smaller car? I mean, even to the point where my sister, she's been driving a Honda Odyssey a minivan for 20 plus years. Kids are gone. She wants a smaller car. She's looking at like a Hyundai, what we call compact SUV crossover, but she really loves something that's even smaller. I said, well, why don't you get that? And she's like, it's too small. I go, for what? You don't have
It's
pets.
it's the
You have
whole
one person.
if you're in a movie theater and someone in the front row stands up, then you have to stand up so you can still see the play or still see the screen, right? And so as more people stand up, more people have to basically stand up in the back. It happens. We've all been in experiences like that.
Yeah.
That's the whole damn thing that's happened with big cars. People just got bigger and most people don't think about what they buy. Manufacturers followed trends. What I thought was interesting about what David said was by getting rid of the cafe, or I don't even think cafe is the right way of saying it, but they notched it back to what was the miles per gallon that they're now making it so that they don't have to shoot for like 55. It's now like 35 or 32 or
Yeah, I
something.
think that's right.
Yeah. And so I think people will love those smaller cars. And as long as they can be sold that it's safe. And I've read on this before, but Americans believe that there's a reason they don't sell a lot of hatchbacks in the United States, that small cars don't have as much prestige. So the perception in the United States is bigger is better for the sake of ego, basically. And not you guys have been to Europe. So not in Europe. It doesn't work that way. Small cars, Golfs and whatnot are really badass. So it would be a rebranding. I don't mean to get on a soapbox here, but David brought it up. there's no doubt in my mind that's going to happen. In addition to that, there's no doubt in my mind that we're going to see a rush back to ICE-powered cars because America can't win at electric, even though there's tariffs and boundaries of, Chinese cars are being prevented from entering the United States. If you look at what's happened in Europe, then everyone, even the CEO of freaking Ford, Mr. Ford, said the Chinese cars are phenomenal, the electric ones. And so the Chinese effectively have won the electric car war. And so if they're preventing those coming from the United States, they didn't prevent those from going into Europe, that they've trashed the European car industry. So where the hell's the European car industry and the American car industry going to go? This is my opinion. They're going to go back to ICE. You're going to see a return of mild hybrids. And then you're going to see finally, they're going to take synthetic fuel seriously because how else can all the global economies of automotive industry compete? Discuss.
It'd be hard to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely would be hard to. I just don't know that because of our space, we have the benefit of space, and other than urban centers, people want to be able to drive on the highways and whatnot, and so there is a lack of affinity for these little tiny cars. I don't see many, so maybe in urban centers, but I would have to imagine as well those cars will have to be built in the U.S. They're not going to be importing them. They'd have to be built in Tennessee or someplace at a Honda or Nissan factory or something.
Yeah, but it would take a Paul Kramer and a Casey and a Dave and me to a much minor, an influencer or whatever the hell we are, to say, I drove this car and it was an exceptional experience and I love it. And then that's how basically you influence people's buying decisions because most people don't make decisions based on their own opinions because they don't really have one, certainly not one that they hold strongly for anything, really. They just do what other people suggest. So
Yeah, and don't forget the number one selling vehicle in the US is a pickup truck.
Yeah.
And it has always been a pickup truck. And that is going to be
they're bringing back. Did you guys read that? Trump made micro trucks legal again, which I didn't even freaking realize they were illegal or some Mickey Mouse.
Oh, you mean like the K trucks?
Yeah, exactly.
I think you can't jump to K trucks, but do you remember, when we grew up in the 80s, we had all the street style pickups, the Nissan hard bodies,
Subaru Brat.
I learned stick on an 85 Toyota pickup.
Yeah.
I've not followed the news at all, so I can't comment on what you're talking about, Tim. But my wife and I would love a K van, like a sandbar. But
me too.
But there's the likelihood of the American public wanting K vehicles is so low. It's like, I mean, they're putts around here, but I mean, I don't even like driving my 914 on the Beltway because I feel like I'm going to die.
If it's cool, it's fun. You're not worried about safety because safety is the big psychological issue for all of it. And they're affordable as hell, considering what the cost of even a new shitbox costs nowadays. And if it's affordable and the whole thing, ecosystem around it makes them trendy. And, you get someone like Paul Kardashian down there to drive it. He drives it to Cars and Coffee and takes it to one of his rallies and puts stickers all over it and get magnets, soon we get one where his hat fits in. I think then the rules change.
I mean, the smart car was kind of a gateway to that. And it just quickly got badged as sort of I don't know, just it didn't get a good moniker to it. I think people did not. You saw a smart car and you just talk about judging who that driver was. It just wasn't a great look. But to your point, Tim, if we had 4 different manufacturers making 8 different models from a small pickup, or like Casey said,
that's kind of where the
a small delivery
going, right?
van. I mean, maybe like Delica size is a little bit bigger. It doesn't have to be K size. I don't think we're going to jump to microcars like the AutoZam. I think we're going to have to just take a step back. Which, if you look at the Maverick, that's kind of in the right direction, and it's a super popular vehicle, especially for industry that have all these like Napa trucks and these local pickups. And I think if you can take that kind of size vehicle and make it cool, I mean, imagine you can go buy a Maverick Raptor. I mean, that's kind of what we need. Imagine putting a big, their supercharged V6 in that thing and make it cool, but people will buy the ones.
Do you guys think? What Dave's saying. There you go.
The minute that these things are going to suddenly cost over 20 grand again, right? I mean, these cars, if they're going to be successful, they have to be cheap. And that's a problem, I think, for U.S. manufacturers right now. That's a
it's because they have too many regulations. They have too many rules to follow. The cars have to be so big. It costs so much money to make them. And the
safety alone, just airbags and stuff will and ADAS kind of stuff will just kill it.
Larger does not, and I know I'm familiar with the laws of physics, but the larger does not necessarily mean safer because you lose a lot with weight. You lose a lot of the ability to, all the things that are necessary to avoid accidents. It's not as agile and the rest of it. So anyway, I thought that was a really good topic, David, and I really am excited. What I thought was really particularly funny about that whole thing is like, Sean Duffy and Donald Trump, or Donald was over in Korea or Japan. He thought, oh, these cars are cute, and then
These are
Sean
so
Duffy
cute.
was shooting next to him, who's in charge of Department of whatever it is, and said, well, why don't we just make this happen? And then all this news came out about all this regulations and horribleness that have been, really, I think, really screwing a lot of people. How many people? There's a 30% of all car loans are underwater by a crap ton, something like that. I don't know. I mean, we're meandering into politics, which makes me uncomfortable. All right, so here's my
I
little
want to see Trump trade his Diablo in for an AutoZam.
bro wouldn't fit. I mean, I'll just say it. Okay, it wouldn't happen. No.
His hair wouldn't, that's for sure. All right, I'm
Uh,
done.
All right,
All
let's
right,
move
woo.
on. Toyota.
You go, Tim, on this one. You go.
Well, you got the
No,
that's the
you
badass
have the
one.
same picture.
We
I just
do.
happen to have a different version of the car, but
No, you have
go
the
ahead.
race
I mean,
version, Dave.
Yeah, Dave's got the
no,
cool
which
one,
I
of
think is
course.
cool as hell, right? I
Yeah,
needed a car with a
absolutely.
wing behind
Okay,
me,
so what
but
are we talking about for those of you who are listening? It's the Toyota GR GT, twin turbo V8, 641 horsepower, 627 pound-feet of torque, rear wheel drive, 8-speed, rear transaxle, all the things you'd expect. 225 grand. I put it in my notes. I won't read what I wrote, but no EV, no hybrid, though I think it does have a mild hybrid. That not a plug-in. Yeah. So there it is, and that right there, to me, when I read that, makes me so happy because that is Toyota. I think they're still the largest manufacturer of cars in the world, who are saying we're going to put emphasis and focus on ICE powered cars. And that gives permission for the world to maybe follow suit. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean, as I mentioned in the notes, they have all these credits. Like, when you go to someone like Maserati or Aston Martin, Aston Martin had to do something to get what was it, a fuel efficient car just so they can go build the V8. But Toyota's primed to build this, and I think it's the perfect example of you have a leader of a company that is a car person. Jim Farley's the same way, and Ford's building some cool shit. And I think isn't Akio Toyota, isn't this like his farewell? And he came up with the GR Yaris and the Corolla, the GR Corolla, and now this. I mean, is this his swan song? Like this, basically, I don't know. We call it a GT. It's kind of Mercedes SLS. It has this long beak, short rear deck.
It's like a Viper. It's like a Japanese Viper
Yeah,
meets an
they put a
AMG
picture of
GT,
the Michael Keaton
Batmobile.
Batmobile, and it's
the minute
kind of
I
like
saw it,
that.
I couldn't figure out what it looked like, at least the GT3 version of it. And I was like,
Well,
man, that hood is so damn
what
long.
I saw is, if you remember Saturday Night Live, the cartoon bit with the ambiguously gay duo and the and that cartoon, the whatever the vehicle they drove. I just saw that, but it is cool looking. It has hints towards the LFA. But if you remember, they have three versions. They have Tim's version, which is the one I think we would all want, which is a street performance car. Dave's version, which it looks like a full competition car, and
Which
then
they're
they have
coming
Yeah,
out.
GT3 RS.
I read that they're coming out with Dave's RS version at the same time they're coming out with the normal, R
that.
version at the
That
same
makes
time.
sense. And then they had the was it an EV only one, which was they were calling the LFA, and that design was really pretty. I don't think it's as
Definitely.
functional. I mean, I saw that one. I was like, boy, put the V8 in that one, but you need. Can you imagine if you at home or watching? I don't think we have pictures of it, but pull up the EV one and then imagine that with the V8. But I don't think $225,000. There's no way.
I don't,
There's
do you guys really think there's a future for EV hypercars or even supercars? Do you really believe it? Are any of you guys buying it?
No, I don't
I
think
don't
so.
think so either.
I think the idea that Porsche is doing with a hybrid, which is like, torque fill and helping with gear changes, that to me is the best use. Maybe
Hmm.
overboost like they used to have like a curve system, but well, it's proven. I don't think Rimac, no one really cared about buying those. You name your supercar. I don't think Pagani's going to make one. I can't imagine. Did they make one at all? I doubt it. So
No, they
no.
don't. They don't. And so what's going to happen with this new 718 replacement? Oh, by the way, you can thank Ferrari for the torque fill thing you're referring to as being a Porsche design. Nope, Ferrari. So what's going to happen? What's going to happen to the 718, the elect EV 718? Because
Oh, they are not going to build it. I mean, they might have used some of that technology from the GTS and
did
the
they
new
say
Turbo
that,
S.
Paul?
No, but I'm just imagining there's no way there's no buyers for it. I
No,
mean, who's going to buy that?
I think the new 718 there it's going to be EV and ICE. I'm 90% sure.
Well, I think they have to just because they already remember it was going to be
Yep.
718 was going to be only EV. And
Right.
then they got all the kickback. I think they've already gone down. They've already built the infrastructure. I think they have to build it. But I think it's now going to be building it and trying to figure out what to do with it. I can't imagine going in to buy who buys that car? It's the first time Porsche buyer. They're finally reached their aspiration. They're going to go buy their first Porsche and they're on a budget and they're going to go buy a electric one.
You were about to throw a swear word up there. I heard you.
Yeah. I
Yeah, I
just
mean,
don't see it.
well, it's because if you're of the mindset, if you're the sort of green, wanting to show your green credential types, you're not going to probably buy a Porsche EV for 200 to 250 grand. You're going to buy Elon's thing because then you're going to have no tariffs, and his supposedly is going to cost the same. Oh, by the way, Elon's car hovers supposedly.
Yeah.
Moving on.
What is happening?
But I do like
I'm gonna be the contrarian and say that the last time I drove a 918, I drove it for pretty much the entire battery on a beautiful back road on EV mode, and it was awesome. It was like being one with the nature. It's like when I go out and rip around on my Vespa, it's like riding a bike. It's just this wonderful experience. And while I love and I'm a huge proponent of ICE cars, I own ICE cars, I own no hybrid cars. I'm excited to try out an EV 718,
Why?
as long as you have because I think it would be a good experience. They
Why?
don't make another car like it.
Okay, well, I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm just asking because I'm hoping you will convince me because think there's a use case for electric cars and electric scooters and electric toothbrushes and electric vacuums, right? But from an enthusiast perspective, I don't see why any enthusiast would ever choose an enthusiast focused car, unless they're just trying to it's a style statement versus somebody who's a true car enthusiast buying an EV. That's my opinion. A daily driver, one thing, a weekend sports car, another. So explain to me why I'm wrong.
Did they have gas-powered vacuum cleaners in Puerto Rico?
You know
no,
what?
you pull them like this.
Yeah, you do.
Puerto
Because
Rico
I
is
think
very green. Very
I'm not
green.
saying that it should be a replacement. I'm saying that it's interesting to have it as an option. And just like Porsche is seeing it, I think it would be a cool car to lease for 3 years to get the enjoyment out of it as a runaround car because other than the original Tesla Roadster, has there been a small convertible car with really great driving dynamics that Porsche is probably going to use all the trickiest stuff that they can throw at? I mean, go back to that old Matt Farah video where he talked about driving that Cayman race car on the snow, right? And that was the electric Cayman EV because you can do all kinds of interesting things to push power to different sides of the car, which you've not really seen in a sub $125,000 driving experience. I mean, I'm the guy that loves GT4s. I love my 964, but having another experience might be cool. I would look forward to driving it. Do I believe it's a reasonable replacement for what I think is one of the best cars ever built? No, but I do think it would be a cool opportunity to at least try it out and enjoy it.
So
Well,
for
I would
this,
say he said the key thing. He goes, it would be a fun car to lease.
yeah,
You
And
lease electric
it's a
cars.
throwaway
You do
car.
not buy electric cars.
And that's the part of me that the newest car I have is over 20 years old. I just look at it from a historical collector standpoint. And when that car is 20 years old, will anyone care? I mean, maybe they will. Maybe things are different, but I look at it going, we don't need another disposable car. And
I don't think electric car buyers give a shit about brand. And I think if Porsche is going to try to hang their future, or Ferrari or anybody else, and Ferrari's doing the same thing with a new electric Ute, they're going to have their asses handed to them because the number of people that are going to be willing to pay a premium for a high-end brand for an electric car, the Chinese have already proven in Europe that they can dominate the car markets because they build a better electric car. So the cars that we all love, I don't think they have a chance of competing against the Chinese in the electric car realm. Have you guys considered any of this?
yeah, and I think to Casey's point, I think the Boxer makes sense. If the base Boxer came, they made an EV Boxer that was the least expensive entry point to get people maybe into a sports car that maybe otherwise wouldn't. But it's going to have to be a compelling price point, which I don't. Porsche builds too nice of a product to have a product that's going to be cheaper. I don't know. There's no one in the market like it, but I just don't know if.
But you just said it, Paul. That's what they should do. They should come out with an electric if they're going to do it, low entry level, something small, your gateway drug into the Porsche brand. Boxsters are pretty, all these, and build it stateside, make it electric, and without whoring out the brand. That would be probably the best way to,
Yeah.
appeal to
I
that
mean,
more.
when we did that rally and I rented the most base Macan with that 4-cylinder turbocharged 2-liter, whatever, the most, it really was one of the most uninteresting motors I think Porsche's ever put in a car. But take that out of the picture, even though it was so base, it didn't have heated seats, it still had Porsche's magic steering, chassis dynamics, and brakes. And that made that so much fun to drive. And to Tim's point, if they did make an entry-level EV that maybe it had 150-mile range and they kept it light and they made those three things, and suddenly it's 20% less than buying the base ice boxer. Maybe they would get people like the 9. Remember, that was the 914 formula originally. Ferry Porsche built that to attract young new buyers. And it
Exactly.
was,
So don't
and
don't say it's never been done before. And Ferrari
no,
tried it with the Dino. And so for people to say they can't come up with a cheap car, blah blah blah. And anyway, let's move
yeah,
on.
but also, Tim, don't forget, if they were to do that and it took off, they're going to get all these cafe credits, which allow them to build better, more interesting ICE only premier products like the GT4Ss.
Again, without getting into politics, I think this whole cafe credit thing, this EV mandate, this electric car thing is absolutely ruining the car industry. And I'm not saying just from an enthusiast perspective, but actually ruining the businesses themselves. I mean, Porsche is a perfect example, and they're going to be the first to fall. So all these well-intended, environmentally focused, all these whatever green initiatives, they're coming home to roost, and unfortunate ramifications are, well, fortunately for you guys who deal with older cars primarily, I think the stuff you guys sell is going to increase in value because you can't easily replace with anything modern. All right, let's move on. I think I was thrilled a couple shows ago to learn that all of us thoroughly, not surprised, love Alpina BMWs. And so let's go ahead and start an Alpina discussion. And I think, Casey, I was supposed to hand the mic over to you. Is that correct?
I mean, we can all tag team it, but
Okay.
basically Alpina started, as a company that, if I'm not mistaken, they built typewriters. And the guy that did that then evolved into doing cam work and doing twin Weber conversions for BMW 1500s. And then starting from that point, it continued to evolve into racing programs. And then in 1983, they became seen as an actual manufacturer in Germany, similar to the way that Roof did following that point where they got their own VIN numbers. And basically what I wanted to talk about today is, as we have discussed, Roof has been very prevalent in the market in terms of exploding in value because it's kitsch, it's people really seem to like it. Alpina isn't the same thing. It's not, it's more along the lines of AMG, I would say. And those pre-merger AMG cars have rocketed, as Paul and I have discussed in the past. But Alpina never really has. There are cars out there that kind of are expensive. And perhaps the fact that, I guess, BMW acquired Alpina, I think, in 2023. So now that it's wholly their brand. And at the end of this month, Alpina will no longer produce Alpina cars. They will all be built by BMW at BMW. And what does that mean for the cars in the back catalog? I have a friend who has what I consider to be the ultimate Alpina that I will discuss later in our this or that segment. But I figured I wanted to get everybody's opinion on what they thought was interesting.
Do you know why they're called Alpina? The name Alpina? The Burkhart, which is the son who adopted the typewriter business, just thought it had a good international sound.
I think I remember hearing that.
What wasn't it Matt Farah that went over and interviewed the Alpina family and the original stripes, like I'll get a better picture of our 323, were supposedly from skis. Like he got the
Yes.
original inspiration. I just thought that was awesome. But Casey did say something very interesting, I thought, is that there is the pre-merger with Mercedes, the whole pre-merger thing, and with AMG, and there isn't yet to be with the BMWs. And Paul, you talked about this earlier with the Alpinas, is those cars probably are massively underpriced if you look at them. And Casey, why do you think they have been underappreciated?
I just think
What's your
they're
opinion?
not distinguishable enough. I mean, I think that it's designed to be the type of car that crosses a continent. It's not the kind of car that is out there to put up a fascination level video. It's never been the car that was in a 1980s or 1990s rap video that people aspired to have. They just didn't have the marketing that appeals to the broader audience, specifically to us in the United States. But I think they're tremendous cars. I love the fact that they designed them to be effortless. It was designed almost to be like the Bentley version of a BMW.
So
And it never translated.
what I was fascinated by, and you guys forced me to do a lot of research on this, was the roof analogy that Paul brought up, that the roofs actually still have roof VIN numbers. And Paul, I think you're probably going to know more about this than I do. So roofs were actually taken off the Porsche assembly line and given a separate VIN number, and they're an actual manufacturer. Again, not an expert at this, but I believe the Alpinas before BMW bought them, actually, they had their own VIN numbers, but they still kept the BMW VIN number too. So they had a build number, not a VIN number. And I got
Both.
both.
They had
Okay.
both. So I think initially they were what we would call a tuner company. This is in the 60s and 70s. My old mentor had a 67 Alpina, 2000. It started life as a 1600,
I remember that
and
car.
Alpina ended up putting, a 2-liter motor from the 2000 CS, and then, as they mentioned, did dual lever carburetors. They evolved by the early 80s. They became their own manufacturer, and they did what Roof did, which was they got what's called a body in white, a non-VIN chassis, and they would build it. But like Roof did the same thing. They had those, and then they had customers who would go buy a brand new BMW 320. They would drive it or ship it to Alpina, and then, to your point, Tim, they would get two numbers. They would have an actual BMW VIN, and then they would have an Alpina number. So you had kind of those. And then by time you got, when was it? Early 2000s, you would buy Alpinas at the BMW dealership in the US. And I think at that point they were no longer, they were no longer their own VIN number. They was just it was a BMW. I think when you listen to, I put a thing in our note, Matt Farah had Andreas um, Bovensiepen, who is the son who is now taken over. Now, what's interesting about Andreas is in the late 90s, he was an engineer. His dad, instead of working for Alpina, made him go work at BMW as an engineer. So he was tied into the whole Z8 program as a BMW engineer before ending up running Alpina. Now, with Alpina selling their whole brand to BMW, the thing that I find most interesting is they're going to be doing what Roof is doing without building new cars. They're going to have this heritage division where they're going to take, like, for instance, Tim, your 320 or 323. Imagine you in 10 years you send it back to them and they redo the whole car, and now it gets a new life, and they're going to have a whole classic division. And by the way,
I was thinking of
it's still
saying it
wine.
today. I was thinking of saying it to Dave for that exact reason, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
We can
yeah.
do that, see.
Yeah, well, but so our car is not our car was a customer BMW, and it was, if I remember correctly, it was obviously over in Germany. It was owned by a somebody in the US military, I believe. I'll have to read all this again. And he essentially had BMW Alpina essentially assemble the car for him, everything but the motor. And so he ended up having the motor done in the United States in the 80s, I think, or maybe it was the 90s, and it's got some sort of big hot rod motor in it, but that aside. But that's, for example, what Paul was talking about. If you guys are on YouTube, so it's backwards, sorry, but that's the Alpina build plate for our 323, but it's got a European 323, E21 VIN number. So, that's what he's talking about.
And then with that plate on your car, Tim, it has a single a digit first and a dash. So yours says 3-1007, whatever.
Right.
The 3 stands for the third year of being an Alpina manufacturer as a manufacturer. So your car is what, a 1981, 80 or
80.
80. So I think 77 was the first year, or 78 was the first year, 79 second year, and then 80. So that's what the 3 is for. That's the number of years they've been producing cars as a manufacturer. And then the other ones in that year, that's your sequence number, however that works. We can talk about it later, but my biggest issue with Alpina is not Alpina. It's the Alpina, I don't know what you call them, fanboys, forum dorks, the ones that just die on that hill. It's not a real Alpina, and it's such a they don't realize it was a small manufacturer building cool hot rods that, by the way, most of them were not legal in the US, even during the gray market time. So they had Hardy and Beck, and they had Dietl in Southern California. They had all these licensed Alpina dealers, way more than Roof. Roof didn't have that stuff, where they would build these Alpina cars. And then they would say, well, those aren't a real Alpina car. And then Alpina doesn't keep the best records per se, especially back in the early 80s. So I read through the whole listing of your car, and your car is really cool, Tim. The biggest takeaway was I was shocked that the Alpina dorks didn't come out of the woodwork and just flame the car for not being, this. And to be Alpina, it has to have the motor done.
Because the owner, the current owner and the previous owner were high caste Alpina dorks. That's
okay.
Why.
So that's what made it legitimate. But I have sold a couple Alpina cars, and oh my God, talk about dot your I's and cross your T's.
Let me interview you about something, okay? I remember, Paul, I don't remember 1 year from 10 years old. It feels about the same. This may have been more than 10 years. But you had an E21 Alpina for sale, and people got like rabid freaking dogs after your ass. And it was a really, really cool car. What happened?
Yeah, so it actually was my mentor and the old owner of our building, Nick Reed's car. He had bought it, but the guy back when BMW launched the E21 series, especially in the US, they knew they had a problem, which was with the smog regulations, they were going to sell a slower car than the 2002. And so they were trying to figure out, how do we make this car faster? And the big dilemma that BMW had was, do we make it a turbocharged car, or do we make it a 6-cylinder? And this is the relationship Alpina had with BMW, similar to Roof. BMW has Alpina, and the reason they have such a close relationship is they get to use them for skunkworks projects. So they basically gave 3 body in whites to Alpina, E21s, just blank slates, no VIN number, and said, you build us versions of each, and we'll see what we want to do. A 6-cylinder, and they built 2 4-cylinder turbos. And basically, these were halfway finished cars because they weren't really interested in a lot of interior and so forth. So at the end of the story, BMW goes, you know what? We're going the 323. We're going the 6-cylinder route. We don't want to deal with the plumbing of the turbo. So they had these 2 turbocharged cars. The guy I was selling it for, the guy who built it, he was the head of Cosworth F1 Racing. He was the engineer behind it. He was working out of college. He went to college in Germany, but he was a US guy. He went to work for Alpina. He was the engineer on that project. So what happened was, him and the other engineer snuck away these 2 cars. They didn't have a VIN number. He got this brilliant idea. He was going to put it on a container with a bunch of new BMWs going to the US to go to a dealership. And he lived in Colorado. Literally, that car got through customs with no VIN number.
What year was this?
This is 81.
Good old days.
Gets into, and it gets delivered to his nearby dealer in Colorado with no VIN number. And he tells them, hey guys, it's on the same boat. I'm going to pick it up. It's a race car. He gets it. He makes his own VIN number and registers it with the DMV in
Oh,
Colorado.
like you did back then.
Because the VIN number, the last three digits say 320. What
Yeah.
are the odds of that? And so, but here's the funny thing is, while they're working there at the factory and they're building these, they're just rating the parts bins. They're getting all this stuff from Alpina, the seats, the gauges, the cluster. So he built his own car. It wasn't in the VIN registry with Alpina because it wasn't supposed to be a street car. It was technically supposed to be crushed. He just happened to escape with it. And it was a really fun car to drive. You know, that car will never have Alpina lore. It's just this weird footnote. But we had all this documentation from the guy who actually built it because he sold it to my friend, and he was in the off season. He used our shop to rebuild his Testarossa motor. That was like his fun. He built engines for fun. Anyway, and I, like you said, Tim, holy cow, I was naive. I had no idea how the Alpina group will eat their young at the first chance.
They were honestly worse than the long hood 911 guys.
Way worse.
And that's saying a lot.
And so the funny thing was, I sold it to, another side tangent, I sold it to Paul Zuckerman. And I was very clear what the car was in the ad. And Paul Zuckerman had a roommate in college who had an E21. And so he just wanted nostalgia. And I remember he goes, can you bring it by my law office for me to test drive? And I'm like, I'm not taking it there. But it turned out I had to go see a client. I said, okay, fine. Test drives it, falls in love. It drove fantastic. It was a great car. We're sitting in his bullpen. And it felt like if you watched the movie Glenn Ross. I mean, it was just the quintessential sales pit where everyone chest bumps and rings a bell for whatever. And I go, hey, it's 20 grand. And then he pulls out of the credenza 20 grand in half hundreds, half 20s, used, like rubber banded together, not new bills, used. And I go, well, there's tax and license. And he goes, how much is that? I don't know, 10%. So he just, another 2 grand out of the credenza. I'm like holding this, like, I do not want to put this money under a black light. I have no idea where it came from. But, and then, you know, he goes to, he lives, it takes him 6 months to get it out of his system. He calls Canepa to I think, sell it to them to pay for whatever restoration they're doing. And they just call Alpina. And Alpina goes, we have no record of that. And I told him, like, of course not. So the car, as last I heard, is one of the largest BMW Alpina collectors up in Northern California.
Where it should have been. That's awesome.
Where it should have been. And he drives the piss out of it. I mean, this guy's got one of the V8 E46 M3 GTR race cars that he takes to the track. He's like,
so we should take a step. We should, thanks for sharing that. We should take a step back. So Alpina, when it got bought by BMW, moved away from being true performance cars, and they're not the badass hot rods that they used to be. And what was the first like move away from being a badass car? Was it the Z8 or was it something before that?
I think it was the fact that after the E34, they no longer put a manual in a V8. I think that if you had to talk about E34 was the beginning, and by the time you got to the E39, everything V8 had a Steptronic, including the Z8, which, you know, if you listen to that link by the Smoking Tire, he describes the ethos of the Z8. And unlike Roof, Roof is trying to make these cars that go 200 miles an hour that can drift around the Nürburgring. And kind of what Casey said, Alpina was building a luxury GT, you know, cruiser.
The newer version, not the old one.
But even when you get to the 90s, they're really kind of going that direction. High level materials, nice finishes, stroker motors, big torque, and in the end, I think, you know, what did it, when he was interviewing with Matt Farah, he said our average driver drives 30,000 miles a year in these cars.
That's
they're Autobahn bombers.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
when did these cars move? All three of the cars that you guys have behind you versus the car I have behind me, none of them are painted in Alpina blue. Now, was that something that came on later? There's one. Obviously, when did that come on as sort of the color that you were getting if you wanted an Alpina?
I'm not really
Is that
familiar.
kind of where Tim
Well, when I looked
suggesting
at like
kind
E34s and it showed all the number of the cars I was looking at for this or that, I'd say a third of them were called Alpina Blue. I don't know, Casey. To me, Alpina Blue seems like a 90s thing
I would
and
agree.
newer.
Yeah,
oh, but
I
there's a
agree.
bunch of them in 2000s, a lot of 7 series, a lot of this 8 series behind me here. I mean, I see a lot of them. I mean, I've got a neighbor who has 2 of them. He's got an '06 and an 11, I think, both 7 series,
Do you guys
but both
remember?
in that blue.
Do you guys remember who Alpina's main competitor was, Paul? I'm going to count on you to know this. Who was their
Main,
main competitor, primarily in Germany in the BMW hot rod space?
was it Schnitzer or
Hartman,
Harkey?
Harkey.
Harkey?
Harkey.
Harkey? Yeah.
Casey
Which
got
yours
it
has
right.
a Harkey header or
Harkey header, right? But we had, long story super short, when we were in college, I was going by Patrick BMW, and I always looked to see what they had way in the back, the shit they wanted to wholesale that the wholesalers passed on, that back row behind the back row behind the back row. And there was this white 323 there. I was really into it. And then I got into it, and it was a real Harkey H3 that someone had brought in, and this dealership couldn't sell it. They were really afraid of it. It was originally mint green. Someone painted it, went through, it had a hard time in the 80s kind of thing. But long story short, that's really got my obsession with the E21s because that car was so much freaking fun to drive. It just was. The E21s, if you've never driven one, they are tail happy sons of bitches, even with all the right things done, but they're so visceral. It's the equivalent of I was going to say a long hood, but I don't think that's fair. It's equivalent of an 80s narrow body 911.
I would say a mid-year 911, 74 to 77. But the funny thing is, you knew they were good cars because the BMW community used to call them food for 2002s. 2002 builders would take all the stuff out of the E21, the steering rack, the suspension, the transmission, everything but the engine, and put them in the 2002. And that was really their big downfall, was they just had, especially for the US market, a really shitty engine.
So a really nice, I know, again, I follow this, a really nice 100% 2.8 liter B6 E21 whole thing, 100 grand. I think there was one that sold, a Henna Red one that sold for like 109,000 or something like that. And there's hardly any of them that ever come for sale. Mine's arguably not as well, not arguably, it's not as valuable as, let's say, one that was like a true Alpina, because this was a customer car. I think we paid 48,000 for ours. It doesn't make sense to me, that especially the ones that are 100% pedigreed won't go up significantly in value. But I could be completely wrong, because I don't think there's a lot of emotional attachment. Casey said this to Alpina as a brand versus AMG. It was never on Miami Vice, for example.
And also they were just cars people bought and used.
Yeah.
And they got the fact that one survived. So many of them got, even like the Harkey and so forth, where they got repainted, they got parts taken off. People would sell them. They go, "Ooh, I want the steering wheel." And to get one complete is really hard. And I think, when you look at the value, the most expensive vintage Alpina product is the Z8. I mean, what
Well,
is the
let's get to
Z8?
that. You're teeing us up, right? All right, so let's
Yep.
move on to segment 4. This or that. I think this is your idea, Paul. Build a 2-car garage with a daily driver Alpina and a weekend Alpina. No budget, no duplicates. Did we duplicate? I didn't look.
We
Uh,
didn't.
Okay, good. Oh, that's awesome. Winner for the single best choice of the best 2-car garage pairing. I don't know, Paul, what's the winner going to win? Maybe a Full Throttle Talk sticker?
exactly. Maybe, as one of our
A
viewers
t-shirt.
mentioned, something a little bigger. We'll get a bigger sticker, although I love the small stickers.
Casey, why don't you go first? You've been waiting
I want
patiently.
to go last because I'm going to win.
Oh, that son of a bitch is going
Bam.
to win. I see his list. Damn, Casey. That's not fair.
That's
Yeah.
why I wanted to talk about this. My buddy has the best Alpina in the world.
He fills out the spreadsheet last, listeners, so they can see what lame answers we come up with, so he can basically
I didn't
So
even look.
blackball
I
us.
just made sure I didn't duplicate it. That's
I
all.
think, hopefully we didn't pick the same one, because the problem is that you would use like B10. They would use that same moniker in E34 and
We didn't.
E39. So yeah.
Well, David, why don't you go first? So remember,
Well, of course.
you have to do a perfect pairing. You've got 4 choices, which would not be a pairing.
No, no,
I don't
no.
know.
As I
I don't know if
suggested
that.
in the notes, Tim, it was going to be a game time decision here based on what everybody else was going to do. But since I'm going first, I'll go with the 2 I was going to go with anyway, and I don't think I'm going to dupe anybody else. So with my affinity for the E38, there was just no way I could not pick a V12 Alpina E38. This particular one behind me, long wheelbase car. It was hard to find, and I went back to a lot of sales of these cars to find an E38 BMW 7 Series, to find one. I think this one sold over a year ago. But beautiful example. I happen to really like this Alpina blue. It's, for me, when I see that, I know what I'm getting, right? And maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing, but
Can I ask you questions
I've
about
I've
that one?
always
So that was
yeah,
it.
of course.
That's a 750 IL E38. That's a Alpina. Was that an Alpina like built car or a
Yep.
customer car? Okay.
Yep.
So that's really
That's
badass. So far, so good.
5.7 liter V12. This one it was obviously a European imported car, which many of them are clearly. It's got the full regular kind of setup. I mean, all the typical styling cues for the Alpina setup. This one actually sold for $70,000, and it goes back a ways, actually. Now that I'm saying it, it's 2 years ago, so over 2 years ago is the first one of these I could find. I could find a ton of later 7 Series Alpina cars, but not any E38, and that to me is my sweet spot on the 7 Series. So that is car
That's your
number
daily.
one.
That's your daily, right?
That's my daily. And then my weekend, I wasn't going sports car. I kind of wanted practical, sporty fun though. So in this case, I went for hang on a second. Let me pull this up here real quick. This happens to be a 96 E3 3.2 inline six, 245 horsepower, I think, something along those lines. This one had been converted from the automatic to a much later. I'm trying to remember what car it came out of. I think it was out of an M3. So this car was really kind of nicely set up as a fun, sporty little driver. And again, the Alpina blue. Never a big fan of the gold accents and stuff when they put it with the blue, but this was a nice car. The interior is a little kind of plain Jane,
Looks
which
LE.
you would sort of
Yeah.
sort of expect. And I only have a small picture. You can see that one seat there in the back, but you can see that it's got the manual conversion. They have cloth inserts on the seats in this particular year. That's very European as well. Europeans don't seem to like or don't go as much leather on the inserts and stuff on their cars. They do like them a little more Spartan. But
So
you
if
can
you're
see the panel, the plate on that one as well above the glove box. So it was a real deal car as well. This one only sold for 40 grand. So I thought it was a reasonably good value as well, and would be a fun car to tool around in on the weekend. So there's my two.
It's interesting that both of those are from the same generation, by the way.
Yep.
Late 90s,
I,
pre Chris Bangle.
there you go.
All right.
There you go.
So
Those are my
Paul,
two.
you're next.
Yeah, I didn't actually find listings because when you really get into some of the really a lot of these Alpinas, they made very few. So my daily is a 94 to 96. It was based on the E34 chassis, which I absolutely adore. Even in the non-Alpina world, in the M world or regular, E34s are kind of unloved, which I never really understood. It started with a 540 touring chassis, the V8. They stroked it to 4.6 liter. They made 340 horsepower, 354 pound-feet of torque. They had a top speed of 170 miles an hour. This is in a wagon in 94. They only made part of the reason 19 of these wagons, and none of them came to the US. You couldn't really gray market it, but if it were me, I would do either Daytona Violet or I think is it this one that's Oxford Green? Well, there's Daytona Violet. That might be Oxford Green. Here's what the engine looks like, which looks kind of like the 4 liter V8, but obviously a little bit different. Here's a silver one. Look how good that looks with the stripes in silver. So that would be my and going back to we talked about values. I think it's hard to find a real true VIN number Alpina, even with only 19 of these made. My guess is these sell right around six figures because the bi-turbo sedan version of these are in the 70s. These are harder to find. As my weekender, I adore the looks of an E30 M3. This is one of my favorite bodies, but the problem was the
He's
US
showing a
cars.
he's showing if you're listening only, he's showing an E30 M3 with the box fenders,
Yep.
which I didn't even remember that they made an Alpina version of that.
So they did, but going back, by the way, the daily one is called an Alpina B10 4.6 Touring. This is an 88 to 91 based on the E30 M3. It's called a BMW Alpina B6 3.5S. But they made several versions of the B6 on the E30. I think not sure if they were on the E30, but not sure if the E30 M3. It was a 5-speed Getrag dogleg, a 3.5 liter straight six, 254 horsepower, 236 torque. But Tim, they only made 62 of these. When they trade hands, 150 to 250, which, by the way, that's kind of the same price range as a Sport Evo, which would have been the top M product that we didn't get. Here's a picture of it in the
So
interiors.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but so you're
Yeah.
saying that's a 3.5 liter inline six. Is that an Alpina motor or is it just
Alpina
this?
motor.
Right, it's
Alpina
not a heart
motor.
transplant from, say, for example, an E34 M5 or anything like that.
Well, they probably start like most of their cars, except for when they made BMW build their own block. They probably start with, I don't know, Casey, what they would have started with, a 3 liter straight six, maybe.
I would assume.
And then they stroke it to 3.5. So very torquey, which is, the ethos of Alpina was these torquey engines. They weren't necessarily high revving. And, I've raced E30 M3s, US ones. I've driven tons of them. They are the most underwhelming because they look so pretty and they are so freaking slow. But then we sold about 5 years ago a true sport Evo, and I drove it all the way over Angeles Crest. And those were what, 250 horsepower out of the S14 that was stroked to 2.5. And then when I drove that, I was like, oh my God, this is the car BMW should have made. I've driven S52 swapped E30 M3s, which I have a feeling that's what this is probably going to feel more like, which, except I'll bet you Alpina gets the weight balance better and the suspension tuning way better than the home mechanic. But I would love to have these. Imagine looking in your garage and you got that and that. And and by the way, like I said, this is, I think, the biggest thing that shifts Alpina in terms of enthusiasm. After this car, the E34, no more V8s with a manual transmission from Alpina, which I think is a travesty.
Uh, no more V8s from Alpina, which is a travesty with the exception of the
Of the
Z8.
manuals.
No, with a manual.
Oh,
With a
manual. Yeah, you
manual.
got me on that one.
E34 was the last manual V8. And by the way, when you watch that video, Andreas wanted to put a 12 cylinder in the Z8 and they just couldn't fit it. Which, imagine the Z8 with a 12 cylinder. That would have been rad. Take the E38 engine, boom, like Dave has, and drop that in the Z8. But it would have, because when you listen to it, like the funny thing about the Z8 was the only reason that thing succeeded, the parts were super expensive, but the development costs were nothing
Well,
because it was already built.
people don't realize that the motor from Dave's 750, basically that 12 cylinder, was the same motor that they put in the original McLaren F1s. And I'm sure it's not like a crate motor. I'm sure it was modified and whatnot. But isn't that interesting though? I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
It tells you
Yeah.
that motor itself I mean, I'm sure it was heavy, but couldn't have been that heavy, or Gordon Murray would have never have used it in that mid-engine monster, So yeah, interesting. All right, good choices so far. I didn't even know about that E30 M3 Alpina, so I appreciate the education on that one. And frankly, Dave, I didn't know they made a 750 Alpina sedan, so those are good. All right, so my choices were a Z8 for the weekend. Okay, a Z8 Alpina for the weekend. Mine are pretty. I don't have to try to sell them to you. It's funny you guys go into car salesman mode when you're describing your choices. By the way, I don't know if you guys are doing that consciously.
Yeah, it's natural. I'm
You
well, just
guys are
passionate
running
about it.
ads.
Like, I would want these cars. Like I truly, truly would want these cars.
Okay, so that would be the weekend car. And honestly, I want to take our 323 and I want to go through it and it needs a mild restoration. And I'd love to make that into a daily driver. So frankly, if it was practical for me, I would do exactly that. And then I'd have the Z8 on the weekend for fun cars. And I think that would balance it out because you could have fun every day with that thing. Back seats, there's a trunk. Trunk's actually shockingly big. Yeah, that would be it.
But you would, so your daily would be a manual and your weekend would be an automatic.
Well, you got to remember, I got the wife factor, and she doesn't necessarily always want to drive the manual. So there's
All
that.
right. All
But
right.
yeah, no, but I mean, it had to have been an Alpina, but you're right. Had I had the choice, I would have chosen the non-Alpina Z8 that I want. I think the Z8 personally, when I look at the Z8, I mean, guys, come the F on. How are these cars not more valuable? Look at that.
Yeah.
That is nuts. It doesn't make any
It's a
sense.
great looking car, but it just looks too much like a Z4, Z3, right? That's
I
kind of
guess.
I don't
probably
think
what
so.
hurt it, right?
I
No,
don't
I think it
And
looks like a
that
507.
a car in that color is almost $300,000. I don't think that's
Well,
affordable.
No,
You're not
it's
and
definitely
here's the
not.
thing is you're not manual swapping those anymore.
Right. But if you do a standard Z8, Casey, what is that? 225,
200,
something like
yeah,
that? Yeah.
thereabouts.
Right. So that or a freaking new 718, Spider RS, you choose.
Well, I definitely wouldn't pick a Spider RS. I
Well,
picked a Z8.
well,
It's too
yeah,
loud.
Paul's laughing because he knows that I chose the Spider. But anyway, yeah, point is I
over that.
personally, if we were to basically place bets for in the bull market cars for next year, now everyone's been saying that about the Z8 since it came out, by the way. And we've all been wrong every single year as far as that being a fast appreciator. But geez, if you've never seen, and I chose that color, that blue color, it was an Alpina blue, obviously. But if you've ever seen one not in silver or not in black, shockingly gorgeous, truthfully beautiful cars.
But I
Yes.
think the Alpina V8, they call it technically the Alpina V8 Roadster. Black on red, I think, is the most desirable. I think it's the highest value. Which it does, and actually, I chose this, this picture for you, Tim. I mean, how good does that look with a hard top?
It's nuts, right?
It looks
That
so good.
might be the one I look after. Was that on Bring a Trailer?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that might
Yeah.
be
I
it.
think
6,000 miles.
So have you guys driven one of these? I mean, it's just a standard
I
one.
drove
know.
one on Laguna Seca. I was an instructor,
That's right.
and I do not think the owner was pleased with how I drove it because the owner had never driven it fast. They cruised in it, and I was driving 610s, not my car, because I'm one-handing pointing out, here's where you got to turn in, here's where your zone is, and I remember
Well,
we
let's
did.
talk about the car. Let's talk
Yeah.
about the car. So Dave, you've driven one?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Casey, have you
Not
driven one?
not in any spirited way, but yes.
Okay, so I had a friend that this was back when those cars came out, who was a big BMW guy. The car came in, he couldn't pick it up. He asked me and his son to go pick it up, and he told me that he wanted me to drive it, not his son. And the drive back was one of the best, most exhilarating drives in any car I've ever had in my life. The feeling of that car from everywhere, from the way the steering wheel felt, the details of the little, the old-fashioned 1950 steering wheel. But you guys have all experienced this, where you are able to the touch points in the car are one thing. It's when you start touching the things that normal people wouldn't even give a shit about, then you realize something's truly well made. And that's a lot of what's been lost in mass production cars. The Z8 felt special and still does. And it's just, in my opinion, going to be one of the most desirable cars that will transcend most cars from its era. It's such an exhilarating drive and fast and fun. It sounds good. It brakes good, handles good. It's more of a GT car than a sports car for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a classic shape, and I think I mean the value is already it's got to be the most expensive 20-year-old BMW. I mean, I think the only thing that has more value BMW is you're getting into like the true 507, which is probably the only seven-figure BMW.
Yeah,
And that's the funny thing. Think how many seven-figure Porsches there are and how many seven-figure BMWs there are.
that's weird, right?
507 is all I can think of. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that or a new ZR1, Paul, you choose. Kidding.
I like the ZR1. I mean, like, look at it as an Alpina.
No. Oh, he just
badass.
said he likes the ZR1. Do you
Oh, the
guys-
ZL1. Oh, I thought
no,
you said
I
the
meant the Corvette.
ZL1.
I meant the Corvette. All right,
I
Casey.
like that car, Paul, behind you.
Casey,
Though.
let's
That's
see
awesome.
let's see if you close this out with the rumble that you said you would.
I don't know. Paul's are really good.
Yep.
So I wanted to pick kind of two opposite ends of the spectrum. So the A4S, which is the car that Paul mentioned earlier, lightweight 2002 with a 2-liter motor with 195 horsepower. To me, that feels like Carrera RS type experience. I've never driven one. I can't comment on it, but to me, it feels like an absolute little ripper that's really light. And I always thought 2002s are great looking cars. I would have to pick it in some sort of wild color. I saw one transact, I think it was a Sotheby's auction in a dark red, which wasn't super attractive, but I think it went for 60 or $70,000. It wasn't tremendously expensive, but it looked like a good example. My friends Aaron and Minta that live in Stuttgart, they have the ultimate Alpina car. It's a Alpina B8. It's an E39 platform car, and Aaron is a very good mechanic. They bought this car. It's got a zillion miles on it, and he loved it. When I was there, it had an automatic transmission. Now, it's got a manual transmission in it using all factory BMW parts. It's got the later model steering wheel. It also has upgraded brakes that he bought from Alpina Classic and a more modern infotainment system in it. And when I was in it, that car was perfect. I don't think there's anything better looking in the 5 Series range, no offense, Paul, than an E39. I think it's just peak BMW design. And this Alpina that my friends Aaron and Minta have is awesome.
No, I agree. And I came so close to picking the E39, and I had all the E39 Tourings until talking to our photographer, who's an Alpina nut, and I had some off
Coaching.
camera help. Yeah, and he said that's when he said you couldn't get one from Alpina with the manual. But as you know, BMWs have to be one of the easiest manual swaps. To go from a Steptronic or an automatic, like even I'll bet you the E38 is a fairly straightforward manual swap, because one of the cars that I came this close to buying, I kicked myself. Do you remember the E39 540 M-Tech package?
Yep.
It was '03, and the main reason was that was the only way they could offer an automatic in a kind of an M5 automatic. That was their closest. It had the whole M5 body kit, the M parallels, but it had a Steptronic, but you could order as a manual. They made a handful of 540 M-Tech wagons, but I think almost all of them were automatics. And I remember the 6-speed manual swap was pretty straightforward. And that, that's the closest we would have an Alpina E39 wagon manual stateside. But in the end, I mean, look at all the cars we chose. Outside of Tim's Z8, most of these cars are sub 6 figures, which is to me absolutely crazy. And by the way, Casey, you almost won with your 2002. You had one problem. If you could see it in the one behind me, you need flares. The Alpina kind of bulgy flares are of that era are so cool. So you see it on this 67 1600. They've just got these little bulges on them, which looks so cool. And you don't see a lot of.
You had that car at your shop. I remember that car,
Yep.
like seeing it in IRL.
And guess what? The engine of that car is now in my 1600. My 1600 is the first 1600 delivered to the US, and they used it on a photo shoot interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He did sign the engine bay. I spent a whole day with him. He drove it, but this motor came out of this car. And, sadly, Nick, when he had cancer and he passed away from cancer, with that last year when he knew he was going to pass away, he built a crazy whammy motor for the car, took this motor out. And then when he passed away, we sold everything, but the son kept this car. And this was his last drive. It was Target, California in April, and he passed away a couple months later. But the son didn't want the motor. I have the original numbers matching engine to our 1600 that was seized. And this was a done built motor. So I dropped it in. It's a little part of Nick that goes in my motor. It's a 2000 CS block. Sadly, it was built to about 135 horsepower dual side draft Webers. I've detuned it back to a 6-volt single Solex, probably now 100 horsepower.
Why did you do that?
He's weird.
Because it was a collectible first one. And my goal was it's all set up to rebuild the other motor and drop it in. And the sad thing is when we did that, this motor is a race motor. So it's got piston slap under when it's cold. If you've driven a stock 1600, especially when they've got that 373 or 410 diff, I can't remember which one it is. They're really fun around town cars. They're super zippy. They don't have a lot of RPM. In fact, RPM is such a non-issue that I didn't even get a tach with my car. I got a clock, no tachometer. Wasn't even an option. But I kind of miss that 1600 stock torquey, such a silky smooth motor. And this motor is just too racy. It's okay.
Let's get to listener questions. There's a lot of listener questions and
Really
comments.
quick, who won? Who won?
Do
I
I get
think
to
Paul.
choose?
I think you did, Paul.
I know I did.
Yeah, I think Paul won.
Okay,
Come
so I
on.
did like that
You open your
E39
garage
though.
door and you see these two cars. Right here, we'll just do better. Both at speed. Come on. You
I
tell
mean,
me.
they're from the perfect era. Yeah, because you snuck that damn E30 in. So yeah, unfortunately you win again. So annoying.
All
Here's,
right.
did you guys see this on Bat? I'm listeners only. I'm putting up a picture of a 94 or 93 964 Speedster. It's the ones with the all red wheels and has the RS seats and the whole thing. So that car sold, maybe 2 years ago for 200 grand. I'll probably sell for the same price now. If you guys had to choose between that car and a non-Alpina Z8, because they're basically the same money, which would you choose and why?
Oh, Speedster all day long. I
Casey?
mean,
964 cabs are a bit wobbly. Z8s
True.
aren't. I'd probably go for the Z8.
but have you driven a 964 Speedster?
I've not. I've driven a bunch of 3.2 speedsters, but never a 964.
See, I think the 964 Speedster is truly the reincarnation of what the original Speedster was about, which was lightweight, narrow body, fun canyon car. Yes, they'll have a little bit of cowl shake, but nowhere near as bad as like a American Roadster.
I don't want to
Um,
promote. I don't want to promote this car too much, and because it's on Bat, and because
well, the red wheels are ugly and it's
oh no,
red, so who
dude, it's
wants that?
perfect. It's perfect. Oh yeah, I see
The
what you're
way
doing.
it comes.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very
But
much.
Tim,
It,
just
it
to
needs
make you feel
tires. Go
just
ahead.
but these cars, 964 Speedsters, I look at them and they've just a good high level driver has hovered around the 150 mark for a long time, 175, except for low mileage. But like yesterday, there was I think it was a 45,000 mile black one, nothing special.
I
And
saw.
it went for, you saw it. And I was like, what happened to that car? Because it went for 190. I can't
Right.
remember what
Well,
it was.
again, going back to what might be bull market cars, those cars probably because the new 992.2 Speedster is going to come out, and our 991.2 Speedster, those cars are now mid 400s cars. I bet you I shouldn't be saying this because I actually I love this car. I might bet on it. But long story short, I bet you those cars have some good legs in them. And another potential free Porsche where the car's appreciation would cover the maintenance and upkeep. Of course, you guys would agree. You guys sell those types of things. All right,
Yep.
let's get to listener questions and comments, and we'll wrap up today's show. And there were a lot. And listen, guys, if you want to message us when you get the newsletter, if you just hit reply, I get all of those and I respond to everything. You can message us with ideas and questions and whatnot over on Instagram. However you communicate, we read everything. When the messages come to me, I share it with these guys on WhatsApp. And we really do sincerely appreciate the feedback. Sometimes it's just feedback. Love the show and more of this, less of that. And that's wonderful. And sometimes you have specific questions. Hopefully you gentlemen are organized with the questions that I've been posting on WhatsApp. Let's go. Paul, do you have something at the ready?
No, I'm sorry. I know we had some questions. I couldn't find where they were because they got buried in the DMs or were they in our list? So I couldn't find it. I was looking for them.
Well, I'll take this one that it was more of a comment than a question per se, but it sort of does open up a potential topic for the future. Paul sent this out from one of his listeners
Right.
or
Yesterday.
friends. So this one is saying, by the way, I meant to tell you I just listened to the latest podcast of Full Throttle Talk. You should write an article about your buying, selling methods, not using Bring a Trailer. Bring a Trailer only benefits one person, the seller. Good or bad, that car is now forever tagged for when the new buyer goes to sell it. So definitely a good potential topic. And we've touched on it in the past as well, but
I know what stance you guys are going to take based on our chats, but let me give the flip side so we can balance it out. Okay. At the end of the day, yes, you're right. The car essentially is going to have its history forever known because anyone can just Google the VIN number, and Bring a Trailer gives preference to cars that have successfully sold on Bring a Trailer before. So, you want to put your Bring a Trailer bought car back for sale. Chances are Bring a Trailer will let you put it for sale again. They're actually becoming very selective. Ask Casey, you know. But long story short, I think the days of being able to find bargains, unless somebody is willingly, knowingly selling for wholesale, have been over since probably the early to mid 2000s. That's my opinion. And so you got to pay retail and buy the nicest car you can find, unless somebody is knowingly selling wholesale. So I'll tee it off with that. Go ahead. Any of you
Paul,
guys?
comment.
Yeah, no, I think that's the case. I mean, people always come up to me. I love when they reach out and they say, "Hey, if you find a 993 at a really good price, will you let me know?" And
Yeah.
it's like asking a realtor to find something for. No, first of all, the problem is most sellers out there, and Dave can attest to this, and Casey also, they see an anchor price they like, and they create this own imaginary algorithm that makes their car worth more than it is. So instead of me, telling them, hey, your car's worth a lot more, which happens like maybe 2% of the time, I have to explain to them, no, this is why the buyer for this car paid this, and the buyer won't pay that for yours. And going back to the listener question, I mean, I love Dave's quick response internally, which was like, we're not going to give up the secret sauce. I mean,
But
I
what
don't
is the
think
secret? But what is, there is no secret sauce.
there's no secret sauce. The secret sauce is time. You do it long enough, you build a reputation where good cars find you and you find
But that's the
good
way it works in
buyers.
any sales, right?
Any
And,
sales.
and like, but in real estate, there, if you wanted to, you could wholesale your house. There, all cash offer type people. There's Zillow was, there's all these, companies, most of which failed, which are essentially buying houses back 20% off in retail, whatever. Because there will always be people that want a fast sale, no hassle. And because when selling anything, and the reason that I frankly never sell my cars myself. I always have one of you guys do it. The reason is because I don't want to deal with the customer. I don't want to deal with all the bullshit that goes along with the transaction, and that's worth 10% to me. Well, and maybe I just don't even want to wait around. So I might sell the car for 15% off and let you guys take the risk and, make the margin. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't have a database of past customers who know, love, and trust you, you're not going to get offered good deals. I just don't think it's happening anymore.
I
Well,
mean,
I
you're
think there's
good. The good
different
deals you
ways.
buy, get a good car.
What'd you say,
There's
Dave?
different ways to go about buying and selling cars, obviously, beyond bring a trailer. But the implication behind the question or the comment was somehow that bring a trailer is ruining the market because the prices are going up and the benefit is only to the buyer versus, excuse me, to the seller versus the buyer. I think it's definitely changed the way people are willing to buy cars sight unseen just based on 200 photos and so on a collector car. And it's obviously expanded the audience, which is the whole key to it. Meaning you've got the entire US and Europe and everywhere else around the world that you got eyes on this thing. But I do think that there are different ways. I think I'm going to have some little quickie thing. It's all about the stuff we've talked about in the past. In the newsletter, I think I posted something up where we're going to do some, how to shoot a car to get the car shot properly if you're trying to sell it yourself. And there are definitely people that want to do that. And those are the guys that are, that they won't get necessarily maximum money for their cars, but they'll make a little bit more perhaps. And that's all fine. I mean, there's something for everybody in this. I don't think bring a trailer is the enemy at all. I just think it opens up the audience and it's a great repository to look at all these cars.
It's the enemy if you are somebody that made a living from essentially taking advantage of people back in the auto trader days before the internet, where you knew what the national market was and the local yokel didn't know, and you knew cars were worth more than California, and you could buy it and you could basically advertise in California and make a fat margin on it that wasn't available locally. Those days are over.
Yep, they're over. Yeah.
I evolved my business to assisting people with selling cars on that platform because I worked at a dealership where it was my job to buy a car for the least amount of money possible and sell it for the most amount of money. And I changed, evolving out of the dealership to giving people what I believe is the highest amount that they can get for their car, which in a lot of cases is on bring a trailer. And then I get paid a commission based on that because I think it's a more reasonable and straightforward process where the market dictates the value of the vehicle and I make sure that the car is properly represented rather than just stealing it from them. And that to me feels good. And I know that Paul does mostly consignments, if I'm not mistaken, Paul.
100%.
Yep, and I know that Dave's a different
Both.
Dave's a different animal because Dave restores cars and then sells them. So that's a different animal entirely versus me buying a Macan for X and then selling it for X plus 15%. So
Well, what you're doing is you're doing the same thing. You're just making your margins transparent.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, which does seem more fair. How about that? You know.
And by the way, Tim, I sit here and hear this from both. I hear people tell me, "Oh, if you're a buyer on Bring a Trailer, the prices are just too high. You can't really get what that listener mentioned." And then I hear from the seller, "Well, I would never do Bring a Tra-" I mean, I looked at a 76 911 yesterday. I know what it will do on Bring a Trailer." And his whole comment was, "Ooh, this won't bring enough money on Bring a Trailer," which means is it's got enough question marks that it will maybe make it polarizing, and he's not wrong. But the funny thing is, the grass is greener. They're all saying the same thing, but to Dave's point, this is the platform we have. It's obviously successful. There's multiple companies that do it, Cars and Bids, P-Car Market, etc. And how else are you going to connect? I mean, when was the last time you went to Auto Trader or eBay to research a car?
Well, but let's drill down a little bit more. You guys have, and we won't mention names because you guys are freaking hilarious. The shit you guys say on our WhatsApp page. You both, all three of you, have people you will not have as customers. You choose your customers.
Yep.
Because the people are known to be, let's just say, a little bit on the spectrumy. They're a little spectrumy with their expectations, right? And the truth is that that's the power of that you guys have. The reason I have you guys, frankly, I wanted you guys on the show is because you have a database of customers that know, love, and trust you. And that's true with any salesperson. If you sell jets, if you sell collector watches, if you sell, it doesn't even matter, Hummels, it doesn't matter. You're going to have a customer base and you're going to primarily sell that customer base. And the best thing you can do is if you want an advantage in the marketplace, you're looking for something weird, you got to befriend these clowns and basically, hopefully they're going to toss you something that's, not listed yet. And then there you go. Let's get to the next question, Paul. This one I think was sent directly to you.
Yeah, sent to me from a longtime listener, Ray O'Mara. I can't remember which part of the country Ray's in. He goes, "I'm a listener to the Full Throttle Talk podcast, basically from the beginning. Thank you, Ray. While I may not be representative of the people who buy the cars that you guys generally talk about, I really enjoy what you guys are doing. My wallet and garage space don't stretch to 911 GT3 RS. You've kept it interesting, though, throughout, and I really appreciate that. I never feel like I've wasted time after listening to you guys." And he goes on to talk about all the different cars he's had. And he's indicative of a lot of Porsche owners. He's had, 911 since 2000 for the last 25 years, but kind of one at a time. An 82 SC, 84 Carrera, a 993, which ironically he says don't
You're
judge
skipping
harshly.
the best part, bro. I've owned a
I am.
911. Owned a 911 since year 2000. Emphasis on A. I'm a one car guy. Career in the Air Force, flying fighters. So no tears, please. And the limited garage. So the point is he's a fighter pilot.
Yeah, he's a fighter pilot, which, go back to Top Gun. What do they drive? Speedster or a early
Yeah.
911?
Yeah, well, those are our people. So thank you, Ray, for that really nice message. And I posted one from Tracy Ross. I think this one, any one of you guys can read it. This one is a good topic. Maybe we close out today for that one. I can read it. "Hey, Tim, great podcast." I think I did share this one. You guys knocked it out of the park. A few things. I'm sorry, my eyes are blitzing. A few things to suggest. How about a segment on ADMs? They are still wicked high and tough demand cars. I think your listeners would enjoy a topic if you have not covered it before, which we haven't. Stickers, which I thought was funny. I got my Full Throttle Talk sticker a week or so ago, and it's pretty small. Something about 30 or 40% bigger would be more meaningful. I'm happy to pay for it. And another topic might be where Porsche has landed, assuming they have with what they are planning to electrify and turn to hybrids and focus on ICE. We did talk about that today. Thank you for that motivation, TR. Keep up the great work. It's my favorite podcast other than Missed Apex, which I've never listened to. Have you guys?
I haven't either, Casey. Yeah. So maybe Tracy will be our first person to have a Full Throttle Talk wrapped vehicle.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
I like it.
let's talk about ADMs. His specific question. So do you
Supply and
guys?
demand. Supply and demand. It'll always be there.
That's my opinion too. Honestly,
Yeah.
I don't think they're evil. I think it's just what the market is willing to. The question is why does the manufacturer leave the meat on the bone like that? That's the question.
Well, which is what Porsche is trying to pick up the slack. I don't
Yep.
think the manufacturer likes the meat on the bone. So I think that's part of also why the prices are going up. They're like, well, let's see how much the demand will push for it. It's certainly they're right. I don't think I mean, Casey, you might know this better. Does Porsche really understand the US dealer network, which they have to basically, you know,
So
stick to? Do they like the fact that
PCNA,
we're doing that dealers do
no,
that?
they don't at all, and actually they get penalized. They get if
Interesting.
a dealership if Porsche finds out that dealerships are selling, well, at least from 2 years ago when I was with the brand, if Porsche finds out that a dealership is selling cars with markup on them, they will actually reduce the amount of pool vehicles that are available to the dealership. That's at the discretion of pool, meaning there's a pool of vehicles and that regional managers can then hand those cars out to good performing dealerships, people that hit specific KPIs and those sorts of things. A big part of the reason that I left Porsche is because dealerships, why I left working at a Porsche dealership is because there was a lot of motivation rather than I'm a long-term relationship guy. I'm not a short-term opportunism guy. And that's really what the business was changing to over COVID. I think ADMs suck. During my tenure, there were a few cars that did receive them. They were all significantly below market value, and it was not necessarily because of a decision that I made. There were maybe a couple, but the huge egregious ones are very disgusting. And I'm glad that Dave was able to get his car correctly. But my goal, and when on my way out, it was my goal to make sure that a couple of my really good customers got GT3 RSs at MSRP.
What's
And
worse?
thankfully, all that happened.
What's worse? What Ferrari used to leave meat on the bone for the buyer to make money, and they were able to essentially create long-term relationships where people would buy cars that even if they didn't necessarily want those types of cars, a Portofino and a Lusso, and you get a pista type deal. But now all the cars, essentially Ferraris, are depreciating, and they're depreciating a shit ton. And I mean, not as a compared to the comps, they're depreciating like 20%, something like that. But it's an enormous amount of money if you just look at the actual dollar amount. So Ferrari is exchanging. They fully priced their cars. They're making all the profit, leaving nothing for the consumer. But now they're having to face down depreciation. So what ultimately will be where will Ferrari suffer more? Having made less profit, had they left money on the table for the buyer or for the consumer, or from the tarnish of having a brand that now is going to be known as a depreciator? And that's the same problem that Porsche is going to have. Do you guys understand?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, Porsche up until recently was kind of doing that. They, look back in the 997, even 991 era, GT3, I would say 991.2, maybe spawned by the 911R, was the beginning of these GT products having future value. Before that, you buy a GT3 RS, it stayed the same price in 997.2, and it would then start to lower, and then it would come up when it got old enough. And I think Porsche, for the first time, is experiencing this, which I think that's why the manufacturer is trying to fill the gap and raise the prices so much. But it may backfire. I just don't see GT cars, the new GT3. Can you imagine going into the dealer for the next GT3 product and paying sticker, let alone under sticker? Everyone's so excited to pay
I
sticker.
discounted a 4-liter $400. I mean,
Sure.
it depends on where the world is at that point. I mean,
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember selling golly, fall of 19. I remember selling 992 convertibles and coupes for invoice. I mean, it was a different time,
This was 2019, Casey.
19, yeah, right
Wow.
before COVID. So, and if you look at it now, I mean, the only car that's doing well for Porsche in profitability at a dealer level is a 911. Everything else is not good.
Nope.
I
I mean,
sent
they're invoice, they're slightly above invoice. They're doing their best to make deals. People, I mean, the brand is in an interesting transitionary period right now, and the GT product is such a small amount of the actual cars that they sell. I mean, I don't want to side for somebody charging ADM, but if you discount everything, right? And it's a suggested retail price. If you're discounting everything other than GT product, as a business, you have to make money somewhere.
yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with it, but that is the way that it's posed.
Well, so I get emails from a couple guys that they're essentially professional, I don't know what you want to call them, ADM peddlers. They're not dealers. They're just, I don't even know how they get their
Brokers.
cars. Brokers, yeah. I don't know how they get their relationships, but I think I send all of them to you guys. And basically all the ADMs off anything other than the cars you'd expect, the GT cars are gone. So you can get any new 911 right now for basically retail. So
I mean, how much below MSRP is a Macan EV? I mean, those
yeah.
things aren't moving.
All of it. And then there's probably a great lease. I mean, there's
Exactly.
all they
There's
can
gonna
do.
have to
I
be.
mean, like I said, I've not been with the brand, and I mean, honestly, I talk to my good buddy that does work for Porsche all the time, but we don't talk about bad business stuff. So I don't really have the insight. And I don't believe I'd ever be able to have someone like that talk about it openly on a podcast just because
No.
of those sorts of things. But you know, it it's a tough time right now in vehicle sales. So
Yeah.
unless it's a 993 that my client really wants to buy from Paul. So I need Paul's other
Wholesale.
guys to get out of the way. No, my guy is willing to pay what Paul asks. He's just got people in front of him.
Yep.
Oh, I got it. Well, so that is the podcast. I think we got through most of the major questions and comments. Listen, we love your continued support. Thank you. This is going to end season 1 for Full Throttle Talk. Paul and I started this in January. I don't even know how many shows ago, but quite a few. We've been doing it very religiously every week. And it's been an incredible, I think for me personally, it's been an incredible experiment that's worked into something beyond what I ever expected it to be. It's been my pleasure and my honor to have these guys as our hosts. We're gearing up for season 2. We would love your comments and your feedback. We're going to keep this a very niche podcast. We're not going to try to appeal to everyone because, frankly, we're not really interested in much anything else other than what we already talk about. But if you do have any suggestions on what we could do to make it better, we're probably going to be bringing on more guests. So if you'd like to be a guest, and we strongly encourage you to obviously subscribe to the newsletter. And if you've got any content you'd like to have featured on the newsletter, send it over. That'd be fantastic. And we're publishing a lot of other people's articles. We've got a whole bunch of articles that were originally published in S's magazine that we're going to be publishing. Anything and everything you've got that you think will be appealing to our community, I strongly encourage you to submit it, and chances are 99% of the time, maybe a little edit here and there, but we're going to use it. So guys, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. And I'll see you guys in the new year.
Great. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.